3 o'clock on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips here inside the Herndon Chevy Studios. Tyler Head remains at Master Control. Elijah Campbell, I'm not the guy who's in the airport bar. Elijah Campbell is on his way to Cleveland. He will join us a little bit later on, and Terry Ford will make another appearance on these airwaves coming up in just a bit. A lot to get to today. We do have breaking news that I just alluded to at the end of the halftime show, or as I like to call it, the Tyler Head Sports Experience.
I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. We'll get into that for you in just a second. We will talk a lot today. If you have not heard much about it, if anything at all, yesterday, late last night, I guess, Stuart Mandel, who covers the sport of college football, and Andrew Marchand, who, in my opinion, along with John Oren, is the best in the business at covering sports media, put out a joint story on The Athletic about what is being proposed as a college football super league. It doesn't have any kind of official name yet. It is very much in the infancy stage. There is a group out there called College Sports Tomorrow that has a few college presidents, most notably Gordon Gee. You might have heard that name. He's been the president of West Virginia for the last few years. He was formerly the president at Ohio State, so he's got experience at big-time athletic departments. The president of Syracuse is one of these people. The number two associate commissioner, but the number two of the NFL is involved in this. A man that runs one of the largest athletics search firms that likes to fill AD roles, coaching roles, commissioner roles, those kind of things, involved in this. And they're lobbying for massive change in college football.
Yeah, these aren't a bunch of schlubs saying, hey,
Right.
I got an idea. These are legitimate people with strong voices within the college and sports world in general that are legitimately trying to go in front of these conferences saying, hey, here's what we think that next step can be in the future of college football. Will it get there? We'll see, but it's certainly a radical shift in the college football world from what we've come to know.
And I've thrown out a poll question for you, too. We'll get into that in just a second. But first, let me get to this breaking news. This came down within the last half hour. A judge in Mecklenburg County today denied two motions by Florida State to dismiss or stay a lawsuit filed by the ACC that the league hopes is going to force FSU to honor the grant of rights that all of the schools of the ACC have signed, and they hope to have it pay the conference more than $500 million if it wants to leave for another conference before 2036. Let me get here some verbatim stuff from David Hale of ESPN. He says the ruling by Judge Lewis Bledsoe is seen as a significant win for the ACC, as it would likely mean the battle between the league and Florida State would proceed in North Carolina rather than Florida, where FSU filed its own lawsuit against the conference. I have asked a couple of attorney friends of mine about this, and because there are now really lawsuits in 3 states that all have similar characteristics, that being, of course, this one that we're talking about that was filed by the conference itself in Charlotte, Clemson's lawsuit filed in South Carolina, and FSU's filed in Florida. What are the likelihood of that? What is the likelihood of that getting moved into federal court? And I was told that there's a very good chance of that. Which district would hear it? Would it be on some type of, technically neutral ground? Like, would it be filed in Atlanta? Would it be filed in Tennessee? I don't know. Those things I'm not sure of exactly. It may be that it's filed in whatever district the conference office is in. Regardless, there is a chance of that. The ACC, remember, did this one day. They knew that FSU was doing what they were doing, and the ACC countered a day in advance with its own lawsuit. According to this article that I'm referencing, it says Florida law typically offers preference to the entity that files the lawsuit first, which in this case would be the ACC. A conference statement reads, quote, "We are pleased with today's decision, which confirms North Carolina courts are the proper place to enforce the ACC's agreements and bylaws. We remain committed to acting in the best interests of the league's members, and we'll see this process through to protect and advance the ACC." You can imagine that Florida State is going to appeal this as quickly as possible.
Sure.
I'm not sure where the next step is in North Carolina, in the North Carolina judicial system, but it does say here that they could, if they feel necessary, ask the Supreme Court of North Carolina to hear this as soon as possible.
And look, we knew from both the Florida State and Clemson standpoint, this was going to be an uphill battle for the schools because of that ironclad grant of rights deal. So this is already not looking very favorable for them. And I imagine, again, the ACC is probably going to win when it's all said and done.
It certainly feels like it. And I haven't, again, this just came down, so we may get more as more reporters are pouring over what the judge has had to say with more specificity. Look, the number one thing, and you just hinted at it there, Tyler, I keep coming back to one thing only. Everybody signed it.
Yeah.
To come back now and go, well, we didn't know that's what it said. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
You're just mad that other conferences are now making more than you.
Yeah, I mean,
and you're locked into this for another 12 years.
That you all, I say this too. Just remember the members. This was in direct response to Maryland's departure, and the remaining schools of the ACC went to then Commissioner John Swofford, and in so many words said, John, we need two things. We need a rock solid, or as you called it, Tyler, ironclad. We need a rock solid grant that protects everybody and keeps everybody locked in. And we want you to start a television network and get us a great deal right now with Disney. And let's hold on to that so that we know that there is long-term stability within the Atlantic Coast Conference. And John Swofford went and did both things. The ACC network was originally online only, ultimately moved to cable and now streaming, and the grant of rights was signed by everybody. The deal with Disney was locked in place for 20 years. 20 years is a long time. But that's what people ask for. And it may well be that Disney was like, listen, 20 years. Otherwise, call somebody else.
It's essentially the kid asking their parents for ice cream. Parents give them ice cream, kid is happy. Kid sees another kid with ice cream with sprinkles or maybe an extra scoop on it saying, well, now I want that. No, we gave you what you asked for. You're going to eat that. And when it's done, then we can talk about the other ice cream.
Well, we bought you a freezer full of vanilla ice cream.
You have all the vanilla ice cream you can get.
Yeah, but Johnny has vanilla and chocolate and Rocky Road and Oreo.
Well,
and they have caramel sauce.
When you finish all your vanilla ice cream, then we can talk about Rocky Road and chocolate and all that kind of stuff. But you've got a lot of ice cream to get through first.
Right. Like, I want a whole freezer full. You got a whole freezer full, bud.
That's what you asked for.
And, vanilla's good.
It is good.
It's good.
Maybe it's not as good as Rocky Road, but it's still pretty good.
You might want some variants every once.
You don't have nothing, so there's that.
Just buy half a freezer full.
Johnny down the street, Pac-12, he has nothing.
Yeah.
You could be like that.
Johnny's freezer broke.
Exactly.
And all
of
the
his ice cream's melted.
Melted and went away, man. It's gone.
Johnny also found out he was lactose intolerant.
And now I think either the ACC's freezer is still full or it's making a funny noise.
Yeah.
Like, why is the freezer smoking like that? It's not supposed to do that. That seems to be the opposite of what it's supposed to do. I'll give you some more detail on that coming up in just a little bit. But again, a judge up in Charlotte has ruled against Florida State, looking to dismiss the ACC's lawsuit. So that lawsuit is going to go forward. The ACC, again, basically it's not so much a demand, although it is, but basically saying, hey, you got to play by the rules you agreed to.
Well, and we knew that, this grant of rights deal that's locked into 2036, when every school sent a lawyer up to Greensboro, that's where it's, they have the document that they can't even get an email form of or a PDF to go examine it. And everybody examined it 6 ways from Sunday and realized, there's really no way out of this thing. I think we knew that Florida State and Clemson were going to have a tough time in court trying to break through and get anything done.
Yeah, they are. And this is, and I would think this is an indirect blow to Clemson.
Yes,
as well. Although Clemson, in its lawsuit, to be clear, is not asking necessarily for the same things that Florida State is. There's a little crossover. Clemson is also asking for just more clarity on exactly what, because Clemson is basically saying, we believe that this grant only extends to us so far as our membership in the conference does. That if we were to leave the conference would no longer have our media rights. But
Right.
I've read, one of the clauses, because it did come out through the Florida State thing, and I guess in some kind of discovery, and it does say that whether you're in or out of the conference, we got your rights until 2036.
Sure.
So I think Clemson knows that. They're just hoping that somewhere, like in a lot of contracts, to be fair, there is a loophole that somebody can crawl through.
And from the standpoint of these schools that make it very adamant they want to get out of the conference, I understand why they're trying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than sitting back and just saying, all right, we'll wait until 2036. If you think there's a shot for you to get out, go for it, but it's not looking very likely.
So, we'll get into that. And look, a lot of that ties in to what we will spend a great deal of time on today, and that is, as we mentioned at the top of the show, the proposal of what's being nicknamed a Super League. And I think Super League is coming from a very similar proposal that was out there in Europe a couple of years ago for the biggest soccer clubs.
And how well did that go over, Jay?
It did not go well at all. It was the proverbial lead balloon is what it was. But this would seek to have centralized leadership of college football under its own auspices, which is basically what it has now. The NCAA is the arbiter of the rules, but very little else in terms of control, and it certainly doesn't control the money that flows through college football. That is done by the conferences and now the entity that is the college football playoff. This new proposed entity would control all of that. It would write the rules. It would attempt to collectively bargain with current and future players, and a few other things. And on that note, and I'll get you into some details, and you may want to wait to vote until you hear more of it, but I've got a poll question out. As news of a proposed Super League of college football begins to spread, would you be in favor of its main tenets, which include promotion and relegation, salaried players, and collective bargaining? I've given you three choices. Yes, it's time to change. B, no, it's too professional. C, not sure yet. And I'll give you some results coming up. I'm going to let this run through tomorrow's program so that we can all have time to digest it. So we'll get into those things for you throughout the course of the afternoon. And, again, more on what's going on with the ACC. We'll talk a little baseball. We'll check in with Elijah, who was on his way to Cleveland for the Final Four. And we'll hear from some Gamecock football coaches, too. Lots to do on the Thursday edition of the Postgame Show. You've heard a lot of us talking about the men's clinic out in Irmo. Dr. Dan Balknight and his terrific staff have been taking care of guys for many, many years now. As you get older, you want to feel like you did when you were in high school, college, maybe even into your 30s, but nature just doesn't allow for that. But a lot of times, like, here, just take this magic pill and you'll feel great. No. That's not going to work for you. You are you, and Dan Balknight gets to know you. His staff gets to know you. What do you do every day? What is your life like? And then to figure out where those holes are and how to fill them, they will work with you personally, specifically. You'll get lab work that's done for you. Dan will go over it with you and make sure that what they're going to do and prescribe are just right, once again, for you. Feel like you did when you were younger, but make sure it's done the right way. Call 803-875-MENS. That's 803-875-MENS, or log on to themensclinicsc.com to learn more. Dan Balknight and the Men's Clinic. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Thursday. Jay and Tyler with you. Elijah is headed to Cleveland, and our good friend Terry Ford will be back later on. Well, I say good friend. I mean,
he kind of signs our checks. We need to be nice to him.
Just trying to be nice. Just trying.
We're obligated to.
I keep asking him to bring me back that jumbo tin of Old Bay every time he goes to Maryland, and
yeah,
still hadn't done that for me. I do like Old Bay.
Don't we all?
It's quality.
I didn't know they had Old Bay chips.
Oh,
apparently that's a thing. I've not tried those. I need to find those.
There's Old Bay chips, and then the Utz folks also have it. They just call it a crab chip, but it's a very similar seasoning. Either one, fantastic. I'm trying to remember. Good. I can't remember who makes the Old Bay chip. Like what company?
Is it like the Cape Cod chip company or something like that? I've seen like videos of people eating them. I'm like, that sounds pretty darn good.
They're fantastic. They're fantastic. Although I'll tell a quick funny story. At least funny to me. My oldest daughter, went to the University of Maryland, and for one of their spring breaks a couple of years ago, she and a group of friends, she's from here,
right?
But most of her friend group was from up there, but they took a spring break trip through the South, and ultimately they went to like Nashville. They went to Asheville, Nashville, and then drove down to New Orleans.
Okay,
and then came back up. And when they were in New Orleans, at not like one of those super like 5-star white tablecloth restaurants, but maybe like let's just say a New Orleans 4-star restaurant.
Okay.
They wanted to splurge and go to like one of those.
Sure.
Because they're college kids. And one of the guys that was with them, they had a group of like 6. And nice meal comes out, and I'm imagining that this is probably like a place that's maybe like a $40 entree type place, like maybe not a $75 entree place.
Yeah.
And so all of this nice food comes out, and one of the kids says, "Do you have any Old Bay?" And they were like, it's like when one of your friends, and you feel bad for us, but it's like when one of your friends orders like a filet well done and then asks for A1 for it or something, and that's how they felt. They're like, "Man, you're in New Orleans." He's like, "Yeah, I just wanted a little something." They're like, "Yeah, they don't do that down here. You don't get to do it that way." But it was pretty funny. Anyway, all right. So I don't know how I feel about this, y'all, and I want some input from you. And I would like to discuss this. So if you want to hit me on Twitter, at jphillips1L, at jphillips1075, if you want to hit the text line, I'd love for you to call in and we can discuss this too. But right now there is a new group. There are 20 people that are on it. I don't know all of them. But they are calling themselves College Sports Tomorrow. Dr. Gordon Gee, the current president of West Virginia, is part of this. Syracuse's president is part of this. They're again, the number 2 at the NFL is part of this. A major sports search firm head is part of this. And what they want to do is centralize leadership of college football. They want to split college football into 2 tiers where it would be all of the current FBS, 130 whatever. I think we have 131, 132.
I think it's 134 because Kennesaw State's coming in this year.
All right.
Hootie hoo.
Which, by the way, is a really big school. I didn't realize how big Kennesaw State was.
Wow. It's pretty massive.
It is big. All 134. The top 80 would be that'd be like your top, your tier number 1.
Yes.
And then the 54 below, and however many that ultimately ends up being, would be next. The top 70 of that 80 would have no issues with ever being relegated.
They are locked in.
Yeah, that's basically your current, we've been calling it Power 5. Now I guess we'll call it Power 4 plus Notre Dame. And that does equal 70 schools as we speak.
Yes.
The 8th 10-school division, if you will, would be made up of that group of 5 type schools that would be promoted every year, and then 10 would drop down every year.
Or every 3 years, however
whatever the period is.
There would be a set time when those teams would change.
I say every year because I'm so used to European soccer, where
right. Which again is where they derive this from.
Yes, and look, let me say real quick, I know American fans don't like to hear it or whatever, but and listen, I love all of my American sports, but trust me when I say promotion and relegation works. Any of you who ever get tired of seeing your team or any team, especially in the NFL, I will say, tank. Like when the Dolphins were tanking for Tua, right?
Yep. Sucking for luck in Indy.
You know, when you see that and you get mad, what I always say is you can't do that in European soccer because nobody tanks.
Sure.
Sometimes you're just not very good. But regardless, let's just use the Premier League in England. 3 teams are going down. And not only do they go down, but you lose more than 50% of your annual revenue.
Yep.
That will motivate the billionaires that run the National Football League if they were to ever do it, or the billionaires of the NBA or baseball or whatever. But we're not talking about them today. But
And it's very much a point of pride. I forget what team it was in the English Premier League a year or two ago that had never been regulated in like 60 years and went back down. And it was this massive, like, again, I don't remember which team it was.
Like, look, Leicester went down. Everton's about to go down. West Ham went down. Newcastle, you might be one of those.
It is a major point of pride, even if you're not having a great season.
Right.
Hey, we didn't get regulated.
Right. So that's something that's being proposed for college, but it wouldn't apply to the schools that are currently amongst the again, Power 4 or Power 5, however you want to describe it. We'll have to come up with something else at some point in time. They also want to unionize and come up with a collective bargaining agreement. And that way, when kids are signing out of high school, what they are signing amounts to the same thing that NFL rookies, I'm just going to use it, the NFL, what NFL rookies sign.
Yes.
So coming in, like, hey, if you don't like any of this, I mean, yeah, you might have gotten drafted by whomever, but if you don't like what this CBA says, then you will not be employed and you will move on about your business.
Right.
And you will not play professional football. The same thing would be true here. You will not play college football if you do not sign this. Right now, some of the things you sign, again, for years, you basically just been blindly giving your life away, which, as we have talked about, has now been deemed grossly illegal by the federal courts of the United States, including the Supreme Court of the United States.
And it was illegal for the 100 years they were doing it.
Yes.
And now you're at risk of potentially having to back pay all the athletes that were a part of the NCAA when it was illegal.
And I do remind for all of you, and I'm not taking anybody to task here or telling you how to feel, but for all of you, well, I don't like what's happening. I get it. I don't either.
Sure.
But I need to remind everybody as often as I can, the reason these things are happening is because the way the NCAA and its member institutions have done their business, especially with college football, but really in all sports, but since football's the moneymaker, it is because, again, they have been breaking so many different federal laws, including like the Sherman Antitrust Act and a lot of facets that come through that. Again, they were ripped apart by the Supreme Court for this.
If I had a nickel for how many times we've talked about the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1892, I'd be very rich.
And think about how old that is. I mean, that's it, so I just want to remind everybody that they have been breaking law after law after law after law, and knowingly, willingly, at times. And it has, and it's finally, as people like to say, come time to pay the piper.
Blank has hit the fan.
Yeah. And like I said, instead of 15 years ago deciding to slowly but surely evolve into the modern landscape, Mark Emmert did not lobby his presidents and chancellors to do that. They said, well, we don't like that, Mark. Go fight it. And so they started fighting it, and they got hammered.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, this is like sending your JV high school team to go play the Steelers.
Essentially.
Yeah.
We've equated the NCAA in court to Glass Joe from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, though Glass Joe did have one win. He was 1-99.
Yeah. Well,
so they're not even doing that good.
No, they're doing quite poorly, actually. But this new group would like to try to find a way to do this so that those involved would be in agreement and therefore have no reason or grounds to sue.
Right.
A lot of people do believe that some of this is in response to a pending case in California, which is called House versus NCAA, and it is seeking back pay of NIL.
For basically the 100 years this was illegal, And it's not just living athletes, it's family of athletes that have passed on. So if you played college basketball at Cal back in 1950 and you died 30 years ago, well, guess what? Your family could potentially get, the retro or the reimbursement for whatever you could have made back then.
And I don't know how they're going to be able to afford that. Certainly, this case
that would shut them down. They would crumble.
This case can't get to trial because the NCAA is going to lose. And at this point, remember, the NCAA is its members.
Yes.
So if you're a Carolina fan, a Clemson fan, a Georgia fan, a Tennessee fan, a North Carolina fan, you will lose.
Yes.
This isn't, let's not think of the NCAA as the Death Star. I know a lot of times I myself am guilty of that.
We like to assign the NCAA to somebody like Mark Embert and now Charlie Baker as the figurehead.
Right. He's
just the puppet that they put out there to say things.
Listen,
it's everybody else behind him that's holding him up.
Yeah,
and pulling the strings.
Baker's trying. I think Governor Baker, though, has walked upon a blazing inferno and has like one 12-ounce bottle of water in his hand.
He's trying. He's doing his best, but it's an uphill battle.
That's the way I feel about that. We'll get you some more details, and I want to start talking about this in terms of how you guys feel about it, because I think while this outline may not work as currently constructed, I do think there is something to learn from it as we move forward in college football. 803-404-6100. We'll check in with Elijah as well. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Talking Super League of college football. Will it happen? Will something similar happen? I don't know about that. Maybe. A lot of you have already commented on Twitter. Thank you. I'll get into those for you in just a little bit. And I've got some breaking college basketball news. But first, let's let you hear this as we talk to somebody very important. Elijah Campbell does join us now as he makes his way towards beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, spending a day like a real tourist at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, eating Chicago dogs, deep dish pizza, Italian beefsteak. What else have you had today?
Mostly just pizza, enough to where I think I'm going to be able to sleep through this entire flight to the hotel. So I think I've got I've eaten enough to make myself pretty comfortable here.
Well, that's good.
A lot of eating. I mean, when you're here for 7 hours and you're surrounded by food options, especially the pizza that I can smell the minute I get off the plane, I wasn't saying no.
You're a captive. You're like a bear at the zoo, man. You're just all doped up on whatever they give you, right? I do have breaking men's basketball news. This is not unexpected, but is becoming more official, if not officially official. Southern California is expected, according to Pete Thamel and Jeff Borzello of ESPN, to name Eric Musselman as their new head coach. The deal is expected to be finalized very soon. Musselman will replace Andy Enfield, who left Southern Cal after 11 years. Hard to believe he was there 11 years. I really, you and I were talking a couple days ago when this was beginning to kind of trickle out. I was like, oh, is it like 6 years? And you're like, nah, I think it's more like 10 or 11. And sure enough, 11 seasons. Enfield is going to SMU. Musselman, of course, has gone to the Elite Eight and a couple of Sweet 16s during his time in Fayetteville. But this past season, it didn't go well. For a variety of reasons. It isn't like one season, what have you done for me lately kind of a thing. But Musselman has a lot of ties to the West Coast and just that region of the country. And as we talked about a lot, Elijah, this makes a lot of sense. But while not announced by Southern California yet or announced that Arkansas is losing their coach, when you got Thamel and Borzello on it, I'd start to take it to the bank.
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of the kiss of death. When those guys are tweeting it out, it's basically official. But yeah, Eric Musselman going to Southern Cal, and it's some time for them to make their trek to the Big Ten, and maybe this could be something that brings Bronny James back to a Southern Cal Trojan jersey. Does it? I don't know, but he's definitely going to bring some big names with him in terms of recruits. He's one of the best recruiters in the country, and he's one of the more forward-thinking coaches in terms of playing NBA-style offenses and kind of the way they track things. They're very analytically inclined, at least they have been the last 2 years, using a lot of third-party softwares and information services that a lot of teams don't. Eric Musselman's a fantastic coach, and, it is kind of odd. I'm with you. It doesn't feel like Andy Enfield was at Southern Cal for 11 years, but to have a coach for 11 years leave for a lesser job and then you get an upgrade, it's quite the off-season for Southern Cal. It hasn't been like a full month yet.
Yeah, I agree. And we talked about it, too. Where do you blend, leaving for the Big Ten, which Southern California is, with still being a West Coast school and knowing that three of your Big Ten foes are your longtime Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-8 foes, too, in UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. So, there's a blend of West Coast meets, the Big Ten country. So this is an excellent hire. Musselman has also been the head coach of the Kings and the Warriors in the NBA. He coached at Nevada for several years. He's had some assistant jobs. His dad was a longtime NBA coach. So this is a really strong move for Southern Cal. And you and I have talked about this as well, but I feel like Will Wade, formerly of LSU, currently of McNeese State, not too far from where he was coaching, is probably going to be candidate one for Arkansas.
Probably and should be. I was going to say, if I'm making the hire for Arkansas, the first person I'm calling is Will Wade. It's pretty remarkable. He served a suspension at the beginning of the season for McNeese State. It's got like 8 games, and I think in 3 of those 8 games were against non-D1 opponents. But when they started playing D1 opponents, they won a lot of their games, and they won the Southland Conference with ease. They got Shahada Wells, who was the Southland Player of the Year, to transfer in and be able to make an impact right away. So he recruited really well that 1 year there. He only lost one conference game his 1 year there. It does have that aggressive brand of defense that he likes to play, where they're pressing all the time. They're doing a lot of trapping. They were incredibly fun to watch, even though Gonzaga did take him to the woodshed for the majority of that game. I still think Will Wade is the guy who can absolutely coach his rear end off. And, baggage aside, that baggage, which now, of course, is pretty much legal, if we're being honest, because that's the case, and because he served the penalty. I mean, if I'm Arkansas, I'm not calling anybody else. I saw Trilly Donovan, who's an anonymous insider on Twitter and frequently referred to and The Athletic or by Matt Norlander. The guy knows his stuff, but he said, Will Wade, Jerome Tang, and Chris Beard are the three names he's looking at. I wouldn't contact Beard. I would maybe have Jerome Tang as a backup, but if I'm Arkansas, my first option is Will Wade.
But Jerome's got a great job, right? I mean, am I leaving K-State for Arkansas?
Maybe. You might be leaving for the SEC. I think that might be the thing, too, is that, the athletic department at Arkansas is ultimately going to be worth more in the long term because of a lot of the conference realignment stuff. In terms of basketball, Kansas State's a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't go anywhere, he's going to be in a good spot where he can coach as long as he's in. And it will always be a really good job because Manhattan, Kansas is crazy about basketball. So is Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I think maybe the monetary temptation of the Southeastern Conference is going to help make the Arkansas job look a whole lot sexier than it is.
Well, I was going to say, if there is one thing, I would agree with you there. Arkansas can pay you more money. Kansas State will do a lot for you, but there will be limitations relative to what Arkansas can do with no in-state competition, more money coming through the league, et cetera. So even if the Big 12 is a great gig, and again, the K-State job is an excellent one, too. Speaking of great gigs, Dawn Staley's got one. Congratulations to Dawn. She is the AP Coach of the Year. She's done this a couple of times in a row now after the Naismith Award yesterday. So as we transition to what you're going to be covering this weekend, just another well-deserved accolade for Coach Dawn.
Yeah, so, when we talk about the coaching job that Dawn's done this year, it's not us just, pumping up the coach that's coaching in our market or for the school that we cover on a day-to-day basis. She truly is the best coach in women's college basketball right now. And obviously, you need me to tell you that for a team that's 36-0 and replaced all 5 starters from last year, I highly recommend watching women's college basketball. But I shouldn't have to tell anybody that. She's the best in this business. She's going to win every single Coach of the Year award, and rightfully so. And if there's another person who gave a vote that wasn't Dawn Staley, then they weren't paying attention. My recommendation to them would be to watch women's college basketball. It's a very great sport.
Yes, I would agree with you on that one, too. When you look at tomorrow night, let's get into that a little bit here. I got about a minute or so for you now, but just your early look at this Carolina-NC State game.
Yeah, my early look is, NC State's a really talented team, and they've lost 6 games this year, and it's almost hard to believe when you watch them in this run. They've beaten some really good teams. I thought Stanford was maybe one of the 4 best teams in this entire tournament. They took them down, took down a 1 seed in Texas, and made sure Tennessee didn't get too close in that game. So they're battle-tested. They've got, a great perimeter, and, they even have a former South Carolina Gamecock on the team, too. And so there's a lot of storylines here, but defensively, I think they're going to do their best to try to keep Camila Cardoso from killing them in the paint. They are they protect the paint about as well as any team that I've seen in this NCAA tournament. In the Texas game, they forced a lot of turnovers that way. So this could be a game that, Camila Cardoso is going to have to bail you out with some of her passing ability. They're going to send doubles. They're going to front the post, and they're going to have, players sag down and help on the weak side. If Camilla is able to catch the ball and make good passes out, I think the three-point shots are going to be there for Tahina Pau, for Raven Johnson. If they're able to knock them down, I think South Carolina can win this game by 10 or 15 points. But if NC State is able to get it into a different grinded-out game, then it can get pretty interesting because they have enough shooters and enough scoring, 1 through 5 in the lineup to make it interesting.
Yeah, knocking them down has been the thing of late when it comes to perimeter shooting for South Carolina, so that will certainly need to change a little bit this weekend. More from Elijah as we get ready for the Final Four. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
You hear me all week long talking about the big basketball games this Friday and Saturday, and you know what? You can get in on the action too, even if your bracket is busted. Shout out Auburn and Kentucky for doing that to a lot of us, but you can still get on this action with Underdog Fantasy. Our friends at Underdog Fantasy have a new fan favorite way to get in on this by playing the Pick'em game. That's right. Pick 2 to 5 players to build a Pick'em entry for multiple teams. I won a pretty good amount of money this past weekend by going higher on Zach Edey's points, rebounds, and assist projections. That's basically been my big money maker here for the last few weeks. But do that, take a player from another team, maybe Donovan Clingan, steals and blocks. Going higher on that seems like a pretty safe bet. Just go to the easiest mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code 1075. Underdog will match your first deposit up to $100. Plus, they'll give you a mystery special pick to use in your first entry. Must be 18 and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome back into the postgame show on this Thursday. Jay Phillips, Tyler Head inside the Herndon Chevy Studios. Elijah on his way to Cleveland, currently at O'Hare International in beautiful Chicago, Illinois. Terry will be along in just a little bit. We're talking college football Super League, women's Final Four that Elijah's going to cover. And again, breaking news out of the SEC. Looks like Eric Musselman is leaving Arkansas to become head coach at Southern California. Keep you updated on that one as it becomes more official. And again, the other breaking story of the hour, a judge in Charlotte has ruled for the ACC against Florida State. Florida State looking to dismiss or at least stay the lawsuit that the ACC had preemptively filed against FSU. And according to the report we saw, again, that's bad news for Florida State on two fronts. One, it looks like the case will go forward in Charlotte and in the state of North Carolina. And two, even Florida law seems to, according to this report, again, I'm no lawyer, but according to what we're learning, even Florida law leans towards a lawsuit that was filed first. And the ACC lawsuit was filed one day before FSU filed its own suit in Leon County, where Tallahassee is, against the ACC. Again, this is far from over, but it is a big decision today because it does mean this is going to go forward in terms of what the ACC feels. Also today, asking you a poll question about our talk of the Super League of college football, which, again, we'll continue to tell you more about. For those of you just tuning in, I'll explain. But right now, would you be in favor of its main tenets, which include promotion and relegation, salaried players, and collective bargaining? There's more, but those are some of the big ones. A, yes, time to change. B, no, it's too professional. C, not sure yet. Right now, 51.7% say no. It's too professional. 32% yes, time to change, and 16.3% don't quite know. Elijah, we'll have some more votes on this throughout the afternoon. I'll run this for tomorrow. I'm not so surprised by the early results.
Yeah, cool, because it's radical, right? I mean, limiting what we now know as there's 130 plus FBS teams and almost cutting that in half. And then basically for 10 of those teams that you're saying, hey, your spot here is not permanent, you have to win to stay in, is a very radical way of doing this. And also it's radical to be able to let these players organize and collectively bargain for things. But at the same time, as radical as it sounds and as weird as it is to think, and that's like the main reason I voted that I wasn't sure yet, because I have such a hard time wrapping my mind around that being a possible reality, even though I do like it in principle. It would eliminate a lot of what college sports fans don't like about college sports right now. And that's about players transferring all the time or having, no stopping of players transferring multiple times. Well, that stops if you can collectively bargain it.
Yeah.
Or, players leaving somewhere for money, or teams being able to, quote unquote, buy championships and wins or whatever. Well, that might be able to pause. You can do a salary cap type deal if you collectively bargain. I mean, because collectively bargaining does save a lot of the things that a lot of people don't like about college sports right now and changes it. So, in a way, I'm not surprised to see maybe some pushback against this idea, just because it is so radical and it is so different than anything that we've ever envisioned for collegiate athletics, and because there's like a European model aspect to it with the relegation and promotion. But I think that would, give it 1 year of an exciting finish in, whatever they deem to be the lower tier, to promote a team like, I don't know, Utah State or Fresno State or somebody like that, and it being an awesome event, kind of like what we see with, the men's and women's conference basketball tournament to get into the NCAA tournament. Give it a year or two of having exciting finishes and results in that, people might change their mind. But as of right now, I'm not surprised to see people, I guess, maybe kind of apprehensive to the idea of completely taking your wrecking ball to the NCAA football structure.
Yeah. And Tyler, one of the points that he makes there about it would end a few of the things that people don't like. It would also end technically what people do like, and that is conference football. And I don't know that that a lot of the SEC fans, Big Ten fans, are going to look at that and go, yeah, I'm all for the conference football thing just kind of going away. So it's not necessarily a catch-22, but who are you going to play every year, and exactly what does this look like? I got somebody that hit me here. Let me go back to it. Ryan says it's not real promotion and relegation, so I'm fine with it. He's right. If everybody isn't in danger of being relegated, is it real promotion and relegation? No. The only promotion and relegation is for the lowest tier, which means they'd always be behind the eight ball. Quite honestly, and you want to talk about radical, if you're going to do it, everybody should be subject to being relegated. Now, let's just say you got 10 groups or 8 groups of 10. If the 10th place finisher in each group is relegated every year, and then 10 come up from the next level, the top 10 from the next level, and they're placed into those groups, that might make a lot more sense and have everybody be a little bit more incentivized. I don't know. But, again, that's one of the facets. Very, very early. We'll get you some more detail on this. More from Elijah ahead of the Final Four. We'll talk about the Iowa-UConn game as well. Lots to do on a busy Thursday with breaking news all over the place, too. You are listening to the Postgame Show. I'll tell you again about the men's clinic. We've talked about Dr. Dan Bognight and his amazing staff, great people there, and at Carolina Cardiovascular and Associates, just great people to take care of guys and what they're going through, especially as they get older. One of the things that Dan wants to tell his patients is that there's a lot of social things out there that you may believe about masculinity and what you've got to do and what you can't do. And he wants to make sure that, men are more likely to skip checkups because of this, delay getting medical attention because of this, or if they seek care, they don't really want to talk about it. That's not good for you. If something's bothering you, if something's wrong and you know it, you need to address it. And when you would talk with Dan, he's gonna listen to you. He's going to make sure that the things that bother you can be corrected, be taken care of. He's really good at what he does. 803-875-MENS, themensclinicsc.com. Call Dan Balknight. He's a great guy. Four o'clock on this Thursday. Welcome back in. Second hour of the postgame show underway from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia. Jay Phillips here. Tyler Head at Master Control. Elijah Campbell on his way to Cleveland covering the Final Four. Gamecocks and NC State get it going tomorrow night a little bit after 7. Our airtime will be 6:30 tomorrow night with Brad Muller on the call. And Carolina, should they take on or beat NC State, will take on the winner of Iowa and Connecticut. That'll be game 2, the championship game Sunday. And again, as long as Carolina advances, then that game also will be on 107.5 The Game here in Columbia. Gamecock baseball fell to Georgia Southern last night, a game I felt very uncomfortable about. Mentioned that in our preview of it in the 5 o'clock hour yesterday during the drive around the SEC. Didn't like the pitching matchup, and it befuddled Carolina all night. They were blanked 8-0. Grand slam early by Georgia Southern, and Carolina just couldn't get anything going last night. Look, we'll have some sound from Coach Kingston a little bit later on. I'm not going to tell you, it's just a one-off. Look, sometimes you lose. It's sports, but you don't want that feeling of a failure at the plate to carry over against a top 5 team coming to town this weekend. But last night was not good. No other way to put it.
No, not at all. And again, it's something you hope you can shake off because you're once again welcoming in the number 3 team in the country with A&M this weekend. And, we've talked so much about how important it is to win those home series because playing on the road is really tough. So you dropped one against Alabama last week on the road that you feel like you could have won if you corrected a few things. And now you get another tough test with A&M starting tomorrow.
Yeah. So, again, need to get the bats going as quickly as possible. Again, could it be a one-off? We'll see. But game 1 of a 3-game set with the Aggies starts tomorrow night. All right, again, a lot of news to get to today. A lot of things going on around college athletics. Number 1, a couple of breaking stories for you. A judge in Charlotte has ruled against Florida State and for the ACC. FSU wanted to dismiss the ACC's lawsuit, which was filed first against FSU. The ACC wants to make certain that FSU is held to the agreement that they signed. And when it comes to the grant of rights, when it comes to exit fees, this could have an indirect impact on what Clemson is doing with their lawsuit filed in South Carolina. We'll see. This is, again, the first of many rulings that will be coming down from judges in the region. Secondly, Eric Musselman, a different story, of course. Eric Musselman is apparently leaving Arkansas. This was expected to become the head basketball coach at Southern California. Not official yet, but Pete Thamel and Jeff Borzello, who cover college sports nationally for ESPN, have put that out. There are others that are reporting it as well. And again, they're getting this. Thamel and those guys get it from the agent. So, I would start to say you can take that one to the bank. We'll see who Arkansas may turn to. It does feel like Will Wade of McNeese State, formerly of LSU, potentially Chris Beard of Ole Miss, could be headed to Fayetteville. Jerome Tang of Kansas State, as Elijah mentioned earlier, is a name that's being thrown around too. There could be others. I would think Will Wade is at the top of the list at this point in time. And again, congratulations to Dawn Staley, named the AP Coach of the Year for the 2nd consecutive season. We'll have more on that coming up for you in just a bit as well. All right, so College Football Super League. We've been talking about that a lot. You've heard a lot of buzz around that today. Again, last night, Stuart Mandel and Andrew Marchand of The Athletic put out a story that there is a group called College Sports Tomorrow that would like to have 8 10-team divisions at the highest level of college football. The 8 winners and 8 wild cards would go to the playoffs. The 8th division, if you will, would be made up of teams that we can typically think fill the group of 5. And they, every year, would be, in some form, promoted and relegated. How exactly that works and how that looks, we do not know as of yet. But the current Power 5, if you will, all those teams, SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, Notre Dame, they're fine, and they can never be relegated. So if you are a fan of a school that is often, a 2 or 3 win team, Vanderbilt, I may be looking in your direction, and a few others, you'll be fine. Even a school like South Carolina that had a losing record last year, you'll be fine. Or Mississippi State or whomever. I could go on and on. Rutgers, right? Tell me where to stop, Elijah. Indiana, I can keep going.
Those are evergreens.
Yeah,
Rutgers, Indiana, evergreen. If we had true relegation, we'd be in trouble.
Right. Again, some of this is okay. Here's the thing, though. So I want you right now, if you are a somewhat potentially jittery Southeastern Conference fan, or maybe you're here in Columbia or around the state of South Carolina, Florence, Myrtle Beach listeners, and you're those of you at the beach, you moved there from, I don't know, Oklahoma to work in our beautiful tourism industry, and you're an Oklahoma State fan. All right. The ACC and the Big 12 and the SEC and the Big 10 are not meeting with these people as of yet. They have had meetings that were kind of on the docket, and then they were pulled. Why? Well, there's a lot of different reasons. Is it because they don't want to upset their television partners? potentially? Is it because they don't want to give this group credence until they, especially Elijah, the SEC and the Big Ten, who have a joint working group, have come up with more of their own proposals in terms of what college football and college athletics could look like? Are we waiting to see if the ACC is going to fold and the Big 12 is going to absorb some of those schools and everybody's going to absorb? There could be a lot of different reasons, but as we speak, this group is not really gaining a lot of traction with the biggest names in the industry.
Yep, and I have a really good guess as to why, because this proposal, Jay, would ultimately break up the conferences. And what do these commissioners have a duty to? Their member institutions. They already mentioned it. If you get back in that article from The Athletic last night and kind of look through some of it where they talk about, the Alabamas of the world will get paid more. The bigger brands will get paid more. But you know what Vanderbilt's best interest is? Being in the league that has Alabama in it and gets to reap the benefits of being in there with Alabama. So does, Arkansas, Mississippi State. South Carolina reaps the benefits of being in a college football conference with Alabama. And Greg Sankey's one of his biggest, like a commissioner in any other pro sport, his biggest duty is to be what's best with the owners of the franchises in that sport. So Greg Sankey is for the athletic department of the schools. So that's obviously, I think they hear the grouping of 10 and they hear the Super League, and it's going to involve a lot of merging. And that's where there's going to be a whole lot of hesitancy because there's going to be some members in this, like Alabama or Georgia, that are going to be that, in theory would be fine with it because they're still going to make a lot of money. They're still going to get to benefit a lot. But your, lower end schools of the conference and athletic department aren't going to be as eager to even entertain the idea, especially something like South Carolina. Like what would be, where would South Carolina be in this? What, other 9 teams would they be playing every year? They'd be in a quote unquote like league or conference with. More than likely, it would not be the same opponents they're playing every year before, SEC expansion. We thought we got upset about them not playing Georgia and Florida and Tennessee for 2 straight years now. Well, they may never play them again if we go into this. And part of that is what makes the fabric of college football in the SEC so dominant and so profitable. So that's one of the reasons why I think there's going to be a whole lot of apprehension from a lot of these conferences, specifically Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, when it comes to this idea, even if it can maybe long-term be a good framework of how we do this moving forward, maybe just not with the specifics that have been discussed right now because they haven't been able to discuss them with us.
Yeah, and I think you just hit on the thing that may ultimately happen here is that look, there's some good ideas in this. And I've seen some that say, I push back when people say, well, all this money, all this is just going to ruin college football. Well, look, the television money has certainly altered it. But I would say this. These networks and these corporations, really, let's not even go with networks. Let's go with corporations. Again, we throw around ESPN a lot, but who owns ESPN? Disney. Again, the group that owns Fox, it's more than just, the Fox network or Fox Sports here in America. They're a global entity. Yeah, they do a lot. News Corp is a huge global conglomerate. When they spend this money, they don't do it in the hopes that the product they're spending it on is going to go downhill. Sometimes you do have bad investments. In this case, I don't think you will when it comes to college football. They want to see it thrive and get better and get, a good return by selling a lot of commercials during games. That's how they make their money. I know you know that, but I'm just, telling people that's, they want it to survive. So how can they help? Those are some of the things that are out there. But you just mentioned it, Elijah. We can't have the conferences go away. I mentioned that at the end of the hour for just a second, but you can't have the conferences go away. I just don't think enough people will be supportive of that. And remember, now we're going to not just talk about Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti. We're going to talk about the presidents and chancellors and the boards of trustees that all these schools have, and those are who those commissioners ultimately do report to. Those are their bosses. And again, this comes down sometimes to presidential level decisions on day-to-day things, but a board of trustees is going to tell its president or its chancellor, nah, we're not doing that, and don't go over our head on that one, or so. there's a lot to like about what they want to do. Again, the relegation part, I'm here for that in some degree. I think if everybody had that as an incentive or a fear, if you will, that could make things a little bit different. Sam Kahn, by the way, of The Athletic, has put out, it's very hypothetical, y'all, and so don't sweat it too much. But he's got Carolina basically in the ACC, Maryland as well, if I'm not mistaken. Carolina and Maryland, he would have. Basically, it's the old ACC with a new bit of the ACC. So if you want to take the original 8 and then add in Florida State and Georgia Tech, that's what you got. All right, and I'm talking original ACC with South Carolina. He's got the Southeastern Conference 10 as the same 10 that were in the Southeastern Conference before Arkansas and Carolina joined the league. He's got the old Pac-10, all right, which means no Utah, no Colorado. He's also got one that's interesting, Elijah. He calls it the frequent flyer division, and it has Missouri, Kansas, Kansas State, Utah, Iowa State, Northwestern, UCF, Nebraska, BYU, and Colorado, because they've all been moving around a lot. I like that. That was kind of.
They are frequent flyers.
Yeah, that was kind of kitschy. And then he's got the old Southwest Conference, basically, but it's not quite the old Southwest Conference, but it's close. He's got Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in there, who, of course, used to be part of the old Big Eight. Otherwise, it's the old Southwest Conference, which is, again, kind of cool for nostalgia purposes, but nobody cares as much anymore. And then he's got the promotion and relegation group, which, again, has 54 teams. And basically what Sam did was take the 2022 and 2023 conference champions and put them together. Again, it's a hypothetical exercise, so I won't get into all of that. It feels confusing, unwieldy in a lot of ways. It could be. But, again, I don't see South Carolina – and a few others saying, no, yeah, we were good. We're good with going back to the old ways. I just don't think that's going to fly.
Nope. And there's too much, too much of other schools not getting the best end of this deal that would prevent this from absolutely happening. But I think there is credence to maybe, to maybe shortening, limiting the number of future conferences, maybe trying to, here's the thing. We're approaching a year where we're going to have the Big Ten cross through 4 different time zones and 4 teams, on the West Coast. You want to talk about frequent flyer miles. Those schools will be racking up frequent flyer miles, and it's going to get ridiculous in an 18-team league deciding who your champion is, because in football, you know what you're not going to do? Play 15 league games.
Right.
So we're already gonna run into some trouble as is.
Right.
The one thing I do like to take away from Sam Kahn's piece and his theoretical idea, along with what we've already discussed, is that that maybe shortening these things is for the benefit of the sport. So good luck with that.
Yeah, I hear you. A lot of you hit me on Twitter. I want to get to some of your comments as we continue discussing this. You're listening to the Thursday Postgame Show. All right, welcome back into the post-game show on this Thursday. Jay and Tyler with you. Elijah has boarded his airplane at O'Hare. He is on his way to Cleveland.
So I was talking to him earlier when I first got him on the phone, and he told me when his flight was going to take off. I'm like, oh, how long of a flight is that going to be? And he said, oh, it's about 2 hours. And I'm like, doesn't sound right. Chicago and Cleveland aren't that far apart, but he forgot he was crossing time zones once again. To go into Ohio from the Central Time Zone. Coordinating with Elijah all day, him being on Central Time has been a bit of a challenge.
This is how it always is when we do media days in the Central Time Zone. Only twice have we done it in the Eastern Time Zone in Atlanta. Otherwise, it's Birmingham. Last year, Nashville. This coming summer, it'll be Dallas. And by the last day, I'm finally used to Central Time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
Well, it's really funny, for the men's tournament, they obviously started off playing Oregon, and I managed to find an Oregon writer to come on my show, and I was like, oh, is like 9:30 okay? But I was like, wait a minute, that's like 6:30 his time out there on the West Coast. Need to be more accommodating, so I made it like 10:30, which is still pretty early. Fortunately, he was okay with it because you always got to remember, and I feel so weird typing out, hey, cool with joining me at 10:30 EST?
Yeah.
So there's no confusion?
Yeah, no, I do it a lot. I especially a lot of my buddies that I've gotten to know through the years from media days and things like that, I'll just say your time.
Yeah.
Because so many of them are in the Central Time Zone, I'll just be like, whatever X your time.
Right.
And then they're good with it. And they do it back. So, but he only has about an hour flight.
Yeah, he won't be on it long. And, given the amount of pizza that he's probably eating today, that's probably a good thing.
He said he was taking a nap. So that's good.
Like a 45-minute hour nap. I don't know how people sleep on planes, honestly. It's too loud.
I can't. I've never been able to, man. Long flight, short flight, whatever flight, I cannot sleep on an airplane.
I flew across the Atlantic like 9 hours, and I couldn't. I tried, but the engine itself is too loud.
I think on my way back from London, I think I dozed for like 20 minutes.
Yeah. That's the best you can do.
But probably because I was just so exhausted.
Yeah, that probably helps. I did, once we got to our hotel in Switzerland, I did pass out on the couch in their lobby because our room wouldn't be ready for like 2 more hours. So, and nobody said anything. So
I remember, it's funny that you say that. I remember getting to London and being told, like, now listen, we know you're tired. Don't go to sleep because your whole next day or two is going to be completely thrown off. And I was like, well, so I went to, and then you know what? I should not have gone to sleep.
And our flight was later in the day, so we flew like into the night, but it was only nighttime for like an hour because we're going across the time, like international dateline or whatever it is. So I only saw darkness for like an hour while I was in the air. So that screwed me up for the whole week.
It gets you going. Talking college football Super League, air quotes. Could this happen or something similar? Potentially. I've got a poll question out there for you. Would you be in favor of its main tenets, which include promotion and relegation for some, not all, salaried players, and collective bargaining? A, yes, it's time to change. That's at 32%. No, it's too professional. Currently now at 51.9%. Not sure yet, 16%. Got a few really good hits on Twitter. Bristow, that's our good friend Bristow Marchand in the State Paper, says, if there were a college football Super League, it would surely be a closed shop to permanently protect the biggest programs and would only offer student athletes what the schools are legally required to. On the closed shop to permanently protect, yes, they basically already stated that with again, 10 slots available to 54 schools. And again, whatever period of promotion and relegation. Is it annual? Is it every other year? Is it 3 years? Who knows? Again, in Europe, it's annual.
Yeah.
I would be there for annual.
Sure.
You need to constantly keep working at it. And the second part only offers student athletes what the schools are legally required to. They would like to collectively bargain.
Sure.
So I think this would be there would be some give and take.
There's the piece of that they mentioned in the article yesterday about how not every school's revenue would be the same. And again, we're looking at this purely from a football standpoint, but Alabama would garner more money than, let's say, I don't know, Wake Forest.
Yep.
And with that extra money, that means, okay, well, if you come in as a salaried player at Alabama, you might make a significantly amount more than being at Wake Forest. So there's going to be that disparity, whether that's the right thing or the wrong thing.
Right.
That seems to be kind of a part of this.
some of you will know who I'm talking about. Others, all of you have heard. I'm going to use Manchester United. All right. Some of you have heard of Crystal Palace. That's a club in London. All right, they're both in the Premier League, and Crystal Palace usually stays up. They don't get relegated. They've been relegated a couple times, but not often. United's never been relegated, and I can't possibly imagine a scenario where United gets relegated. Even if they're like this year they're having a bad year, and I think they're in 5th place.
Yeah.
Okay. United makes a lot more money than Crystal Palace. They're in the same league.
Mm-hmm.
They make a lot more money. The Dallas Cowboys are in the same league, and there's no promotion or relegation in the NFL, but the Dallas Cowboys make a lot more money than the Carolina Panthers.
Sure.
Now, they all get the same check from the league at the end of the year, but the Cowboys sell a lot more tickets. They sell a lot more merchandise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Same kind of thing would be in place for an Alabama, a Notre Dame, a Southern Cal, a Texas. They generate more revenue in their ballpark. They generate more revenue on television. So everybody's going to get a base that's good.
Sure.
But I don't have a problem with you generating more and getting more.
Right.
And whether that's through, like in the NCAA tournament, you get units for progression. Same thing may be true in a new college football playoff structure.
Right.
That makes sense.
That's the issue, though, is getting everybody to agree to that. Because if you are, I don't know, Miami would be one of the big brands. Maybe not the best example to use, but
yeah, but they don't have any. They don't sell tickets.
They don't. So if you are a Miami and you know that you're going into this thing making 10% less than the Alabamas and the Texas of the world, would you be willing to agree to that? Or because again, you know there's going to be a talent, or not a talent gap, but a financial disparity between the top and the middle of whatever this tier 1 is.
I don't know. And that's part of why we have some problems now to begin with. That's why Florida State and Clemson have filed lawsuits, right? It's why North Carolina is so anxiously looking at what happens with FSU and Clemson.
And on the flip side of things, because you can easily say, well, just make sure everybody gets things across the board the same, then the Alabamas, the Texases, the Notre Dames, like, well, wait a minute. We bring in more to this thing. We should be getting a bigger cut of the pie. So I don't see how you get everybody to agree on this.
It's going to be difficult. Joe asks, does relegation work when teams are dramatically different from one year to the next? And he says, think Gamecock basketball from 23 to 24. I love relegation for professional leagues, not college. Well, I mean, does it work? Yeah, Joe, it works because you have a bad year, you're out. You're out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then that guarantees that those 10 teams that are being allowed to be in Tier 1 or whatever we're going to call it for that given period of time are the best that the second tier has to offer. And again, if you go 12-0 one year in Tier 2 and you get bumped up to Tier 1 and you don't meet whatever their minimum standard is, guess what? You go back down. Yeah. And if you go 12-0 that third year, you go back up. And it will be a lot of ping-ponging, but I would imagine a lot of the same programs would probably hold those spots, and maybe there's 3 or 4 that kind of bounce back and forth and you have new faces, but there'd probably be 2 or 3, maybe more, that are just consistently in that top 10.
Calvin asks, who determines the programs that get in the Super League? Yeah, well, and Calvin, that's what we're saying. Right now, what this group is attempting to propose is that what you know of as the current members of the Power 5 conferences, now Power 4, they're in.
We can hit this on the other side, but I think I have a way they could determine who those 10 teams would be.
If you want to keep weighing in, please do. You can hit us on the text line, 803-404-6100. On Twitter, hit me at jphillips1075 and answer the poll question as well. It's the Thursday postgame show.
It's Tyler in the WIS-TV Traffic Center. Let's take a look at your traffic around the Midlands for your ride home on this Thursday afternoon. Do have an accident to report. This one at I-20 westbound right at Fairfield Road. Lots of slowdowns going through that area, so be careful as you get through it. Another accident can be at I-77 southbound right there at Bluff Road. That is exit number 5. You have your usual slows from 77 up towards the Malfunction Junction area, so be careful as you're going through there as well. And a couple more things to report as you get towards the outer skirts of town. Have an accident out at 76 and Columbia Avenue as well. Stay safe. Hopefully you have a fantastic rest of your Thursday and on in to a wonderful weekend.
Talking college football, off-field issues as a group called College Sports Tomorrow wants to transform how college football is run, do away with conferences, have one big, giant college football entity, like a big NFL times 2.5.
So, Jay, Terry and I were talking about this earlier. Between the promotion and relegation similar to the European soccer, as well as essentially making this a semi-professional development league for the NFL.
Yep.
We knew you'd be over the moon today.
Yeah, I'm not though. I wish I were. I wish I were. And by the way, I did make myself a little sick when it sounded like I might have been actually talking nicely about Manchester United a minute ago.
Oh, I see.
Who I cannot stand.
Can't do that.
No, I'm an Arsenal fan, but Arsenal's in first for at least the next 20 minutes until Liverpool wins. Nah, listen. Here's the thing. The number 2 guy at the NFL is involved in this. And, I don't know. His name is Brian Roloff, by the way. The NFL often complains, and I say the NFL. You get coaches, fans, but let's just say coaches. Well, this tackle's not developed enough. This quarterback's not developed enough. Whomever.
Sure.
And then I'll get fans that push back on me when I call for a minor league. Well, Jay, college football is the NFL's minor league. No, it's not. And the reason it's not is, again, let's use Connor Shaw. I've used Connor Shaw as an example. When Connor was in the league, if they wanted him to work on his game, you're not sending him back to South Carolina.
Right.
He's in.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to send him in pro football. The scout team ain't it.
Yeah.
What I've said before, a lot of what we're seeing, in my opinion, in college sports, not all of it, mind you, but a lot of it is based primarily on the biggest stars in the sports, most notably in football and basketball. And certainly now in women's basketball, too, where we've seen Aaliyah Boston make a lot of money. We see Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese making a lot of money. Paige Becker's making a lot of money. Malaysia Fulwiley has just signed a hell of a deal with Steph Curry, which is fantastic. Juju Watkins out of Southern California has a shoe deal. With football players, you got Carson Beck driving a Lamborghini or whatever around Athens. Just, son, please don't go fast.
Please adhere to the speed limit. That's all I'm asking.
We don't need any more of that over there. But if these men and women were, because those sports don't have minor league. I mean, the NBA kind of does, but you don't. Again, the Charlotte Hornets can't draft someone out of high school and place them into a G League team.
Right.
The Atlanta Braves can draft a high school player and put him into their minor league system.
Right.
The Carolina Hurricanes, to use a local team, can draft a high school player and place him into the minor leagues of hockey. You can't do that in football. I wish you could. And I don't wish it because I don't want big names coming to college. It's that those kids that are the best, your 5 stars, which there aren't that many of.
No, there's
your elite high-level 4 stars, they want to go to the NFL, and they'd like to go as soon as possible, or they at least would like to get paid as soon as possible. It's not that they're averse to college. It's not that they aren't smart or capable of going to college. It's that they have been blessed with a physical gift that can allow them to be great at sports and make money from it.
Sure.
Get them into the league. You had a guy from the Jets back when Jadeveon was in college, and I use Jadeveon Clowney a lot for one reason. Jadeveon Clowney was seen as the best high school player in America, and when he came out, he was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. So I use him as a prime example, and he's also local, so that it helps people around here. Allow Jadeveon Clowney to get drafted. He's not going straight to the NFL, nor should he. But if the NFL had B teams, which is what I've always called for,
sure,
you could do this. And then you can get kids that are more inclined to go straight and play sports, and those who do want to go to college and be able to separate them when it comes to the NFL.
Can I run by you my idea for what we're trying to do with these spring leagues?
Yeah.
You know, we have the UFL that just started this past weekend.
UFXFL?
Just like the XFL, the USFL, the AAF from a couple of years ago. They're trying to make these spring league things happen. The ratings are what they are. Not a ton of interest. People watch, but it's not like this groundbreaking thing that, you know, has become appointment television or anything like that. But they're trying to capitalize on having football when there's no football.
Right.
Saying, hey, if you just love football, you'll watch us in March and April because we're football and we're on TV. I've long held the belief, if you really want people to be interested in something like the UFL, play during football season.
Yeah.
On Tuesday and Wednesday nights when there's no NFL, there's no college football, play then. And then maybe you have the opportunity to say, okay, well, this Birmingham team, we can link them up with Atlanta and Tennessee and Jacksonville and saying, okay, this is kind of your pipeline team. And if you need a guy to bounce back and forth and say, hey, we need a left tackle for this weekend's game as a backup, you can pull him off of this spring league team and send him back down if he needs more development and kind of use that as your quote unquote development league, your minor league, whatever it is. And again, play during football season. People consume football in mass quantities. We sit all day on Saturday and watch football. We sit all day on Sunday and watch football. Watch on Monday nights. When Tuesday comes around, we're like, I wish I had a football game to watch.
Yep.
And if you gave them the UFL, yeah, the quality of football is not going to be as good, but I guarantee you your rating's going to be better because
football.
you're in football season.
And that's I like that, and I'd be fine with that if it happened. But that's why I've also said, Tyler, again, I'm looking for a minor league in the NFL, but that isn't the Birmingham whatevers or the Tulsa whatevers. Again, Atlanta Falcons B team.
Sure.
They train at Flowery Branch.
Yeah.
They play in the stadium. Nobody goes, okay, you're there to develop.
Yeah.
This is like saying nobody watches minor league baseball. I know they don't. On television, you go to the ballpark for to get a beer and a dog, but, the Braves, the Mets, whomever, they need that shortstop
Sure.
to learn how to hit a curveball. They need that pitcher to learn how to throw a curveball.
And that's not a bad idea from the standpoint of just like in high school football, you have your JV team that typically plays on Thursday before the Friday night game. If you want to do it, okay, we kick our NFL games off at 1, but at 11 o'clock before 1 o'clock game, play a condensed JV game between two squads B teams. And again, if you had that opportunity to move them back and forth, which essentially you have a practice squad, so you're kind of halfway there anyway, why not?
And the reason I bring that part of it up, and I appreciate that you and Terry thought of me in that way, but on this one, I'm not super excited about this. The promotion and relegation part, again, I'd much rather see the National Football League adopt that, to be perfectly honest with you, because again, I hate tanking.
Yeah.
I hate it. I mean, I can't stand it.
Yeah.
When I see a team, and I'm lucky, my team, even though they've been bad the last few years, but the Denver Broncos, kind of like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Green Bay Packers, you will never see them just crap the bed on purpose. We have seen teams do it. I'm thankful that my team has not. They've been bad.
Sure.
And they've gotten some okay draft picks out of it, sort of. But they haven't, just gone out of their way to suck.
Yeah.
And I'm glad about that. But that being said, if you're going to have the number 2 guy in the NFL, at least commissioner hierarchy, executive hierarchy, again, his name is Brian Roloff, be involved in this, may I suggest to him and to the NFL's owners, start to use your power, your influence, your resources, again, to strengthen your own by drafting some of these kids out of high school and stashing them on your B team.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, having your number 3 quarterback start the game for your B team.
Yeah.
This would also, as I've said many times, help with officiating. It would help with the development of coaches both in game and on the practice field.
Yeah.
There are so many things that the NFL could benefit from, and it's not going to kill college football if a few Jadeveon Clowneys, just say local kids, Jadeveon Clowneys and Stephon Gilmore's and Marcus Lattimore's don't come to South Carolina. You'll still fill up Williams-Brice and cheer for the game.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. In a given year, maybe you have like 3 guys that would qualify. That have to just be these super special, S-tier athletes at the high school level that you say, you know what, that guy's almost good enough to play in the NFL. Let's go ahead and draft him, get him in, start developing him. Trevor Lawrence may be an example of somebody else that people thought, hey, he's pro-ready coming out of high school. And then, after a couple years,
who's our lineman right now, back and forth between Bama and Iowa?
Cade Proctor.
Yeah.
Caden Proctor.
Guy like that.
Yeah, sure. And
or again, Jadeveon Clowney.
It's not like the first round of the draft suddenly getting filled up with 17-year-olds.
Absolutely not.
No, it's something. And by the way, you wouldn't spend a first-round pick on one of these guys.
No.
It'd be a later pick saying, hey, we think this guy's going to be NFL ready in a couple of years. We want to go ahead and get him in, get him up to speed. And, when he's ready to go, we'll throw him out there
but
at 19 or 20.
There may be, Tyler. I agree with you. So this isn't a pushback. But again, I'm going to use Jadeveon as like the outlier example.
Sure.
Jadeveon Clowney might have been a first-round pick.
He may have been. And I think there's a hesitancy because we're talking about a contact sport here, in which like basketball, there's contact, but it's not like the aggressive contact you have in football. Baseball, the same kind of way. So I think there's a hesitancy because it's like, man, this is a 17-year-old kid going out there with grown men. He could really get hurt type thing.
Right.
But so Jadeveon Clowney probably could have held his own straight out of high school to some degree.
And not necessarily in the NFL, but in the NFL's B League.
Yes.
Right? That's what I'm saying. Again, Clayton Kershaw could have gone to any college in America, and I'm sure was recruited by a bunch of them. I've used him as an outlier example, too.
Right.
Big, strong, left-handed pitcher. The Dodgers paid him like $4 million as a first-round pick. But he didn't go to L.A. straight away. It took him 3 years to get to the Dodgers.
Right.
Now, he could have gone to Texas and maybe been a Dodger in 4 years and still been a first-round pick. And he took the money.
Yeah.
I mean, it works for baseball, and the baseball model works in terms of stashing kids for 3 years if they choose to go to a 4-year college. It could work in the NFL. I'd urge this NFL guy to spend their resources that way rather than, quote, fixing college football. More of y'all's comments on this story as the postgame show continues. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Thursday. Jay and Tyler with you. Elijah on his way to Cleveland. We'll be checking in with him throughout the entire day tomorrow, not just on this show.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be talking a lot tomorrow.
All the shows tomorrow. So he'll have a nap on the plane, get over to Cleveland, see the sights. That'll take about 30 minutes.
I've never been to Cleveland in my life, so I know the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's there. That's about it.
Our good friend David Cloninger is penciled in to join us tomorrow from Cleveland. He's also covering the Final Four.
Okay.
He has been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he is very excited to be going back tomorrow for a little bit, early in the day.
I guess you can never go too many times.
He said that he was very excited about being able to see some of the things that he didn't get to see.
Okay.
I would like to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely.
I very much would like to.
I do like that they stylized the logo this year as a guitar pick. I thought that was pretty neat.
That's kind of cool. Kind of cool. A lot of comments on the College Football Super League Longhorn Troop. That's fun on Twitter. It's clear that college football needs uniformity. There need to be conferences of equal numbers with the same schedule format. This can all be done and still have the opportunity for schools to have the opportunity to advance if they perform well enough.
I agree with uniformity. I've been banging that drum for a long time. I think it's ridiculous that we've been in this Power 5 system for basically a decade, and the SEC and ACC still only play 8 conference games, and the other 3, now 2 power conferences play 9. Like, it's ridiculous to me why we don't have that uniformity. I get it. It's a money thing, and when ESPN ponies up the dough for a 9th SEC game, they're going to do it. But it's just weird that it's been this long.
I think you're right about the money. The other thing I've added is that the Southeastern Conference has deemed it unnecessary in terms of how it is viewed when the selection committee makes choices. Does that begin to change with more schools in, or does it matter even less? I don't know.
And theoretically, with this, College Sports Tomorrow plan, there would be no committee. It would be very much an NFL-style playoff. Yeah. You win your division, league, whatever we're going to call it, you're in. Or if you're a wild card team, based on your win-loss record, you're also in. You're not having to impress anyone with style points or game control or eye test or any of that other ridiculous stuff.
That part I kind of like.
I'm for that, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't disagree. Listen, in terms of the numbers of schools in conferences, those have always been off a little bit. I mean, for the longest time, the SEC and the Pac-10 and the Big Ten, had their number, and it was 10.
Yeah. I love that the Big Ten just gave up on trying to change it.
Yeah, well, and the ACC had 8 for the longest time. The old Metro had 8. Jake says college football needs its own governing body, not the NCAA. There needs to be a pay scale for players, like you've said in the past, overseen by said governing body. Yeah, and again, this group wants to be that,
yes.
Or at least they're they don't necessarily want to be that. They are hopeful that is what could come of this.
Yes,
and really, Jake, you're halfway there already. Look, college football isn't really run by the NCAA. Again, they administer the rules, but college football, one of the problems, honestly, is that college football kind of runs itself.
To a degree, yes.
But nobody really runs it.
Well, everything's done individually through the conferences.
Yeah, and now the CFP.
You have this umbrella that is the NCAA that presides over it, but if it's more along the lines of the lifeguard on the beach that's just making sure you're not drowning.
Right.
Where it's like, all right, you guys, you know how to swim. If you're about to die, then I'll jump in there and save you. But for the most part,
or I'll at least blow my whistle.
Exactly. I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to read a book or scroll Twitter and just you got it yourself. Yeah. You're fine.
The lifeguards I remember at Myrtle Beach back in the day there was no Twitter back then, but they were just hitting on every girl that walked by.
Yeah, last time I went to Myrtle Beach. I don't remember the lifeguards. I did almost get sucked into one of those drain pipes boogie boarding though.
That sounds not fun.
It wasn't fun because when the tide is really high, then you can't see them except for those wooden posts sticking out of the ground. And yeah, that one about sucked me in. That wasn't fun.
Yeah, just be careful out there, kids.
Yeah, well, I don't boogie board anymore.
Yeah, so. I wouldn't go at high tide anyway. I never go swimming at high tide.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Nah,
sharks.
It's not the shark. It's just that current.
Yeah.
Like I see people swimming in when there's like all these white caps. I'm like, dude, it's not a pool.
Yeah, I don't go any further than my waist, pretty much.
It's not a pool. Some people really do treat it like a pool, but we digress. Let me get to one more here, and I'll get to a few more next hour because a bunch of you have hit me. Thank you. I appreciate it. Rob says, I'm not going to pretend I won't watch. At the same time, though, it really has lost something for the fan. It feels like the magic is gone from college football, and that, I guess he means this proposal, would solidify it. I want players to be able to capitalize on themselves, but not pay to play. That's the pros. Yeah, and this comes back to what I've said, why the baseball model works. And look, currently, college baseball players can make money off NIL too. But this is what I'm talking about, Rob. If the NFL had a true minor league where kids could get drafted into a minor league out of high school and be developed accordingly, just like baseball and hockey do, and then if those same high school kids chose to go to college, they'd stay for 3 years, and they could agree to a system in place. You don't want pay for play. I get that. But, again, this is years of inaction finally rearing its ugly head. Hour 3 is coming up.
It's Tyler in the WIS TV Traffic Center, taking another look at your traffic around the Midlands for your ride in on this Thursday afternoon. Be careful out there as we do have quite a few delays going on in and around the city. Still have that accident out at I-77 southbound and Bluff Road. That is exit number 5. and still have that accident also at I-20 westbound right there at Fairfield Road. That is exit number 70. Heavy delays going on as you're coming up on I-26 westbound. Right lane's actually blocked at exit number 111. So be careful as you go through there. Then you have your usual delays going through the area of Malfunction Junction. That's the look of your weather. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
It never gets old. Welcome back in. Final hour of the postgame show on this Thursday. Jay Phillips and Tyler Head in for Elijah today. Elijah is in the air right now on his way to Cleveland, Ohio, covering the women's Final Four. He'll be with us throughout the entire day tomorrow here on the game. So looking forward to all of his reports. We'll get into what's going on. Again, congratulations to Dawn Staley to start off our integrated media headlines. Coach has won her second Associated Press Women's College Basketball Coach of the Year award. She got her first back in 2020. Yesterday, she won her third straight Naismith Award as the Coach of the Year. She joins a group that includes Gino Auriemma, Muffet McGraw, Kim Mulkey, and Brenda Fries as the only coaches that have won the AP award multiple times, and it is an award that is only 29 years old.
I asked this question earlier. I legitimately would like to know what Dawn Staley's trophy case or probably room looks like, because she's got so many awards, so many accolades, and obviously national championship trophies, Coach of the Year, Player of the Year, all that kind of stuff going back to her time.
4 gold medals.
4 gold medals,
really 5, because I don't think assistant coaches get them. I don't even coaches get them, but I
imagine she just has a room in her house that's just wall to wall of achievements and stuff like that, and she takes that Coach of the Year award, just kind of places it on a shelf, and all right, another one. That makes 4.
Yeah, I don't know. Or is Dawn? And I mean this funny because she's probably not, but is Dawn it's in a box.
It's in the attic.
I'm just here to do the next one. I'm not here to.
People come over to her house hey, can I see your gold medal? I got to remember what I did with it.
Yeah. Those are the ones I'd have out, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I'd have the gold medals out.
The gold medals are you put them in a shadow box over the fireplace or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, the litany of individual awards and stuff like that might be in the top shelf in the garage or something.
I guarantee you, they're not in her office, and they probably are. But you know what she does like to have as the trophies?
What's that?
Those nets.
Oh yeah, well she wears them during the press conferences.
The netless.
She's
about cutting down nets, man.
She's probably got about enough nets to fill a room too, for being honest.
She wants more. That's what Dawn likes. But congratulations to Dawn Staley. And again, it really was this season. It might just be, of course it is. She's Dawn Staley. Nah, to have 5 new starters, a transfer like Tahina Paopao, a freshman like Malaysia Fulwiley, and Tessa Johnson, to change, at least tweak in a pretty big way. You didn't completely alter how you play, right? To use the perimeter the way you do now relative to really how you ever have before. And to be undefeated in the number 1 overall seed again is an impressive coaching job.
And I can understand how some people can look at it and say, the coach of the best team is getting the Coach of the Year award again. But I liken it a lot to what Dan Hurley's doing with UConn, where they won the national championship a year ago, lost basically all of their key players, and they're right back in position going in as the favorite this weekend after dismantling all their opponents up to this point in the NCAA tournament. Yes, they are the top program, they are the favorite, but to be able to do that with an entirely new cycle of players compared to a year ago is very impressive.
It's impressive, man. There's no doubt. So congratulations to Coach Dawn. We'll hear a lot more from her throughout the afternoon tomorrow. And again, Carolina, NC State tomorrow night, heard here in Columbia starting at 6:30 with Brad Muller on the call. Big news in Charlotte today. Judge Louis Bledsoe is the man who heard the case of Florida State versus the ACC, and he ruled today that he has denied 2 motions by Florida State to dismiss the lawsuit the ACC filed The league hopes that the school will honor its grant of rights because of this and pay the conference its exit fee. And it would, again, it wouldn't pay the ACC $500 million as much as it would pay the exit fee of $140 million and then officially forfeit its media rights through the year 2036. Basically, Florida State and to some degree Clemson have argued that's unfair if they leave the league. The ACC says you signed it. In this case, it's not necessarily that the judge said you signed it, but basically said, I'm not going to dismiss this on your merits.
Right.
You don't have enough here for me to say you're being wronged. You're being harmed. You got to show a judge how you're being harmed. And that's again, comes back to the main point of all this, Tyler. From what a lot of legal experts have said, hey, Clemson, hey, Florida State, hey, everybody in the Atlantic Coast Conference, you signed this thing.
Yeah.
That's on you.
And that's why this ruling doesn't really surprise anyone, because we knew it was going to be a bit of a stretch for them to rule in favor of Florida State and to a lesser degree Clemson as well. That's its own separate thing. But again, I mean, they're the ones, and Florida State and Clemson were at the forefront because they were, among the biggest brands in the ACC at that point in time, as they still are today, saying, hey, we want this. We want to have this TV network and have all this locked in. It's like, all right, sign on the dotted line, but here's what you're signing up for the next, at that point in time, 20-plus years, and we're still 12 years away from it ending right now. And again, when all these threats of them leaving the ACC, I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it, because I just don't see how they're going to get out.
Yeah, I don't see how they're going to get out. And quite honestly, and I've said this before too, when it comes to FSU specifically here, I wouldn't necessarily put Clemson in this same boat based on how Clemson has acted. But if I'm Disney and I know that Florida State is coming after me as well in terms of my ESPN entity,
right?
Why am I going to want to work with my friends at the Southeastern Conference and say, oh, sure, not only will we'll come up with the money to pay them.
Sure.
They're great friends. They've just sit here. Basically, if y'all don't know this, Disney is furious with Florida State because Florida State is attempting to open up the TV deal that the ACC has with ESPN and Disney. And Disney says that is an infringement on their intellectual property and their trade secrets. It's like, you can know how much I'm paying you.
Sure.
But we don't want people to know how the hot dog is made because we have our own way of doing business. We don't want Fox.
Yeah.
We don't want NBC Universal or CBS knowing what our intricate details are.
It's a classic case of don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
Like, you were getting, again, it's not what the SEC and the Big Ten are getting. You're still getting a lot of money from ESPN, Disney, however you want to frame it, each and every year because of the television deal that you did sign almost a decade ago now. And again, if you were to somehow weasel your way out of the ACC, that doesn't. SEC's exclusive to ESPN now and Disney. They're like, we don't want those guys. Look what they did to us when they were in the ACC. Tell them to go kick rocks and see if Fox will take their call.
And here's another thing too. And they could land somewhere. I still have this hunch, by the way, and this is just me talking, that FSU is going to be in the Big 12. I don't think the Big Ten really wants them. They might want Florida as a state. They might get Miami instead. But here's the point. Disney still pays everybody, including the Big Ten, because they are the exclusive rights holder of the CFP, and they just re-upped for 3 times the money.
That is very true. And the money difference between the ACC and the Big 12 right now isn't all that different.
Right.
There's the potential, because their contract, I think, only runs through 2031, that you could essentially re-up 5 years before the ACC deal is over. Yeah.
The Big 12 has a look in, I think, in 27.
So there's potential to make more, but as of right now, it wouldn't really make that big of a difference.
Yeah. For all these FSU people that say, oh, FSU is just going to join the SEC, I don't think so, man.
No, it's not.
I don't think Clemson's going to either, but that's the Clemson case is not, and Clemson has not, in their defense, Clemson has not been acting the way Florida State has.
Well, Florida State has spearheaded this whole thing.
Yeah, they're acting like a petulant child.
They have. This goes all the way back to the end of last summer when this stuff started, and what their our president was saying, we're trying to exit the ACC. Buddy, that ain't as easy as you think it is.
Right. But this is a big step and big win for the ACC. This is far from done, but in the process, this is a big battle won for the Atlantic Coast Conference. Continuing with our integrated media headlines of the day, it is becoming more and more likely now. In fact, it is official. The University of Southern California has announced that Eric Musselman is their new head coach. He replaces Andy Enfield, who left Southern Cal for SMU. Musselman, of course, 5 years at Arkansas, won 111 games, reached the Elite Eight and a couple of Sweet 16s. But this past season, they were just 16-17, 6-12 in conference play. A revamped roster, which is going to be the case for all kinds of schools. It just didn't work out this year for a variety of reasons, chemistry-wise, with his roster. But that doesn't mean he's a bad coach. He also had a really good run in 4 years at Nevada, where he won 110 games in those 4 seasons. His dad, Bill, was a longtime NBA coach. Eric has coached, of course, in the NFL at both Golden State and Sacramento. This is a good hire for Southern California as they move to the Big Ten.
I was going to say, going into the Big Ten and having a coach like Eric Musselman can instill a lot of confidence in you because of what he's been able to do in his time at Arkansas. And I go back to when, Carolina played them at the beginning of the season, and they had not gotten conference playoff to a good start. But when you look at the history of Eric Musselman and his time at Fayetteville, that's pretty common. Like, okay, they start off a little bit slow, but then pick up steam and, end up going on these great runs in the NCAA tournament. That didn't end up materializing this year. And yes, when a huge brand like Southern Cal comes calling for you, you take it up. And now you're going to be going into a very, very tough, not that the Big Pac-12 wasn't tough, but an extremely tough league in the Big Ten, and seeing how you can hang with a great coach like that.
It's going to be it's going to be fun. At Big Ten basketball, listen, Southern Cal can be good. They have had moments. UCLA has, at times been one of the great blue bloods of the sport, not so much of late. Oregon, we saw what they did to Carolina, and then they took Creighton to double overtime. Dana Altman's a terrific coach. Washington has had their moments as well. And, yeah, the Big Ten, I mean, it's a fantastic basketball league. So this is a great hire for Southern California. And no word yet on who Arkansas is looking at. Heavy media speculation and I think even some fan hope that Will Wade, formerly of LSU.
You can't keep him away for long.
Strong offers.
Well, hey, that stuff's legal now.
It is. And my only... maybe not pushback. Look, if I'm Arkansas, I'm hiring Will Wade if I can.
Sure.
My only pushback is that while those things are legal now, you still had a coach, and listen, I'm not naive. I know a lot of people do it. He got caught, but, very willingly breaking rules.
Totally.
Now, that's the only thing. It's like, how willing are you to break other rules? But you know what? Kelvin Sampson is doing great things at Houston, and he willingly broke rules. The same things that got him in trouble at Oklahoma got him in trouble at Indiana. He just did it again. He's like, I don't care.
Here's my thing with Will Wade. If he wasn't a good coach, he wouldn't have been in the position to break those rules.
Sure.
And if he wasn't a good coach, he wouldn't be having the success at McNeese State that he's had in this point, getting the opportunity to come back to the SEC. Good coaches will always find a way to get back to the top. Look at Rick Pitino at St. John's now. The dude has run into so many problems, but he's a winner. And at the end of the day, as long as you're winning, that's all people really care about. They can forgive the other stuff as long as it's not too criminalized and keep on moving.
Elijah made a point earlier, and he's right. And I've said this too. Will Wade was punished and has paid his penance.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I mean, he got popped with a suspension and he had to sit out a little bit. I mean, he's paid his price. That was here's what your punishment is. Yeah. Okay, I'll serve it. And now you're back.
Served your sentence. You've rehabilitated yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you want to believe that or not. And all right, here's your next chance. If you screw this up, maybe that's your last chance in the SEC. But here you go.
If I'm Arkansas, that's my call.
And Arkansas has a history of giving people second chances and third chances.
Bobby Petrino. We'll see how that one goes. But I got a hunch. I've said that already today. But I've got a hunch that Will Wade becomes the guy at Arkansas. We shall see. And finally, what an odd story. The Oakland Athletics today have agreed not with Vegas, not with Salt Lake City, or not even with Oakland. The Oakland Athletics have agreed today with Sacramento to play there until at least 2026 and potentially 2027 as they wait, supposedly, for their ballpark to be built in Las Vegas. They're going to play at a minor league ballpark. They'll share it with the AAA team that currently plays there, the Sacramento River Cats, who are a Giants affiliate. My thing is this, and I'm serious. Vegas has a AAA team.
Yeah, the 51s.
Just go ahead and play in Vegas.
You would think.
I mean, if you're going to play in a minor league park, in a AAA park.
This whole thing is embarrassing. It's such a black eye in this organization that has been embarrassing itself for a while. It's not a fan problem. They did the reverse boycott last year, which I thought was hilarious, basically saying, hey, it's not us, it's you.
Right.
And now they're going to go out there and barely manage to fill up a 10,000-seat ballpark. Good luck with that.
Again, if you're going to play in a AAA park and you're moving to Vegas, then just go play in Vegas.
By the way, the 51s are my favorite minor league team name. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a good one. That's our Integrated Media headlines of the day. Again, brought to you by Integrated Media, 803-948-8327. I just tweeted out an amazing job they did today. One of those big, beautiful frame TVs over somebody's fireplace and got all that nest of wires out of the way. Again, if you need a job like that done, moved, video doorbell, anything in between, outdoor system, I love Integrated Media. I couldn't live without them. And I promise you, once you've got them in your house, you won't either. Integrated Media. Check them out today. All right. More on Carolina football and the college football scene coming up. If you're a homeowner looking to make some improvements around the house, maybe a home theater room, something like that. Or you just want to consolidate high-interest debt, a home equity line of credit could be great for you and your family, and Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union is ready to help. They are local, they are not-for-profit, and they have been in business serving the Midlands for more than 85 years. Their home equity loans offer fantastic low rates, plus lower closing costs and application fees. Save money right off the bat when it comes to comparing them to some of the big bank institutions. Unlock your home's equity and easily access that line of credit over a 10-year draw. You don't have to borrow one big lump sum. Just go as you need it and as your family's needs change. Apply today at palmettocitizens.org or any of their 14 convenient Midlands locations. My wife and I are customers. We use the Millwood branch. Great people up there and all across the Midlands. Palmetto Citizens. Achieve your potential. 20 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Thursday. Welcome back in. It's the postgame show. Jay Phillips. Terry Ford is now at master control. We're going to send Tyler out of here after a really long day. Appreciate his extra work as Elijah is on his way to Cleveland to cover the Final Four. Full reports throughout the morning and afternoon from Elijah tomorrow from Cleveland. And again, Carolina at NC State. 6:30 airtime here in Columbia on 107.5 The Game. Tip time is a little bit after 7 tomorrow night. And then UConn and Iowa about 30 minutes after the Gamecocks and the Wolfpack. Talking a lot today about I don't want to call it a proposal per se, a plan. I guess that maybe I'm playing semantics. From a group called College Sports Tomorrow. Includes a couple of college presidents, including Dr. Gordon Gee of West Virginia, Syracuse Chancellor Kent Severud as well, the number 2 executive in the NFL, Brian Rollup, as well as a man named Len Perna who runs Turnkey. It's a search firm that works with conference commissioners and athletics directors. Most recently helped the Big Ten hire Tony Petitti. Just to give you an idea of kind of who's connected in there. One that's interesting and seems like an outlier is one of the owners of the Sixers, David Blitzer. Almost feels like he's kind of a money guy on this one. They want to alter how college football is run. They want to replace the NCAA in terms of the arbiter of the rules. They want to replace the college football playoff as the entity that is really the only one that is national when it comes to trying to bring college football programs together. And they also feel that because of the number of lawsuits that either have already been lost or are likely to be lost when it comes to how the NCAA has done business, that they think if they could come up with a collective bargaining agreement, basically, that a lot of this would be better. And on that point, I agree. And I remember asking last summer Bill Hancock, the executive director of the College Football Playoff, if he would like his predecessor to be able to have more power than he does. You know, Mr. Hancock's a nice guy, but he has no power to tell schools what to do or what not to do. And he basically said, well, look, the College Football Playoff is really, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, look, we're a clearinghouse. We negotiate with the television networks, and we work with the bowl cities and the destinations, and we help, throw out the bids for who wants to host the playoff and things like that. We don't run anything. And but I did. I said, well, would you like the next guy to do that? Nah, not really is what he basically said. They would have the top 70 schools plus another 10 that would be vying for promotion into this 80-school top level. And those same 10 in that 8th division would also be relegated on a regular basis. How many? Exactly what that looks like, I don't know. But some of this I like, Terry, and some of this I don't. For one thing, this would scrap college football conferences. And for all of those out there, whatever age they might be, one of the things that they love about college football is conference football. And this would do away with that. Now you'd have just, and I'm air quoting like I do a lot, divisional football. Well, who's in my division? And isn't that basically a conference? Yes. But is it the conference I'm used to? Maybe, maybe not. One model today thrown out, very hypothetical, but Sam Kahn, again, if you're going to do these things, throw out some solutions. Sam Kahn, great writer for The Athletic, put out a new, and they wouldn't be called ACC, SEC, Big Ten, but for the sake of kind of figuring it out, that's what he called them. And he had basically the original ACC plus Florida State and Georgia Tech, so, yes, Carolina fans, you and Maryland back into the ACC. That's why I say the original ACC. Those 8, plus Florida State and Georgia Tech.
That's interesting.
He's got the old Southwest Conference.
That's interesting.
Plus Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, who were in the Big 8. So the old SWC.
The old Big 8, yep.
He's got what I it's not the original SEC, but he's got the SEC as it looked. before Carolina and Arkansas helped the league expand for the first time. And he's got the Pac-10.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then he's got one, he called it the frequent flyer division. But it's basically the transient division, and it is, and I'll tell you real quick here, let me get back to that one. It is, where would I had it? Okay, here we go. It's Missouri, Kansas State, Kansas, Utah, Iowa State, Northwestern, Central Florida, Nebraska, BYU, and Colorado. He calls that the frequent flyer division because those schools have migrated through many iterations of conferences.
Interesting.
In the last, 30, 40 years. Except for BYU, who's basically been an independent.
That is interesting. I'm with you. See, I'm with you about this. There's a lot of things I like about this idea. First of all, get rid of the bleeping committee. I'll be the happiest guy in the world to shut the doors on this ridiculousness of the committee of picking the playoff teams. The Florida State debacle ended it for me. I was just like, really? Okay. Now we're done with the beauty pageant. But here's what I don't like. I won't lie to you. I love conferences.
Yeah.
And I'll say the other thing, too, and you tell me what you think. Part of what we love about this sport, and as much as it seems to be getting ripped away every day, is the traditions that we all love. And one of them is conference play, like you said. Now, if you can find a way to set this up to where most folks are getting their conference Jones, so to speak, in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But still, Jay, you got to look. I'm all about evolving, and I've said this before, and you and I have talked about it many times. You've got to change your model because your model's illegal. You got to change your model.
And I want to keep reminding people that thank you because that's one of the things that I've got to keep reminding people. Well, why can't we just go back? You can't. It's illegal, and that's it. It's not. That's not an opinion. It's illegal.
You know who said it was illegal? The guys who sit there in the Supreme Court.
Yes. I mean, they again. A beat down in the Supreme Court is typically like 6-3. You got beat 9-0. And there's another big case that's being heard in federal court soon, and you're going to lose it if it gets to trial. You're going to lose it. Mm-hmm. Because, again, it's going to center on the fact that you were breaking antitrust law.
Yeah.
For decades.
How many years, Jay?
Decades. I'm not sure how many decades. But pretty much, I think at least since, probably the 40s.
Mm-hmm. Close your eyes and picture this.
Maybe longer. Maybe, honestly, Terry, maybe really since the whole time.
Yeah. Close your eyes and picture this scenario. A courtroom with the door open, and how long do you think the line is of ex-collegiate athletes who, once the NCAA would lose this, are going to be in line to get their NIL money?
Why do I think it's one of those like fun facts that you get in the Sunday comics? That it could stretch to the moon.
Yes, this line will be ridiculous, and the NCAA is over.
Yeah,
you're done. You're over. You're going to have to declare bankruptcy. You're going to pull what some of these big corporations do when they lose billion-dollar deals. You're going to have to dissolve, file bankruptcy, and dissolve.
And remember, at that point, because you're right, it would be the NCAA is over. But who is the NCAA?
Yeah,
it's member institutions.
Think about it.
That's what I say. It's not the Death Star.
No,
I'm guilty of it a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not the Death Star.
No.
The NCAA is its member institutions. So, Carolina fans, Clemson fans, Georgia fans, Florida fans, you're up Blank Creek without a paddle, too.
And guess what? Who's going to be paying a percentage of this lawsuit if you have to write a check?
Well, some state schools and governments will be.
This thing, I'm telling you, people aren't paying attention to this court case. This court
House
case
versus the
gigantic.
NCAA is what it is, and I'm not alone, and I'm no lawyer. It's going to be settled.
Well, they have to, but here's the thing: let's be the other side of this. I know I'm winning.
Yeah,
we all know I'm winning, right?
Yeah.
So, what is the number that is big enough to make me not walk in a courtroom and whoop you? Because I'm going to whoop you.
It's big. And
again. So that's Plan B, but Plan B also pretty much wipes out what we know as the NCAA.
Yeah, no doubt.
This is over. And that's what I said earlier today, Jay. These guys, for the first time, have to do something they don't like to do. Be proactive.
Yeah. More on this as part of the drive around the SEC. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
All right, Terry Ford from the Game Chopper drove in from Charwood. Traffic's a little heavy on that side. On the highways, obviously rush hour traffic. Take your time. Pay attention to people in front of you. Get off your phone. Don't look at your face. Don't pick at your teeth. And just drive safely. And know it's going to take you a little longer to get home than usual. And the weather, it's a little chilly. I had to put on a coat. I think that covers it. We'll get back to the postgame show with Jay in a minute. By the way, I've never flown a copter before until right now.
Yeah, I needed that. That was good. Yeah, and the chopper. If I had thought better of it, I'd have made the sound effect for you.
It's the Les Nessman sound effect?
Yeah, Terry and I were caught a little off guard by the fact that we're supposed to do traffic there. But he wasn't wrong. I mean, that was factually correct. It was trafficy over where you were, and it's trafficy leaving town. Mm-hmm. And you should get off your phone while driving.
That's right.
So all of those things, that's a very accurate traffic report, and I needed the laugh, so thank you.
Well, being up in the traffic copter, you can see things so clearly.
When it's funny because it's true on all levels.
So we didn't give you anything that was negative or made up.
No. Well, you were just over there on 321 near Fish Hatchery coming away from Charwood. And, this time of day, good for you, man.
Yeah, a little head
when there's a huge, road and then two interstates coming together.
You know what?
Traffic
gets a little heavy.
I'm down. So, again,
we're good, though.
True story.
And at Charwood, traffic's nice.
Yeah. Well, it's not a lot of traffic down there.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Sometimes you might see a deer.
Every now and then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Down that way. Or other animals. Maybe a raccoon.
Grizzly?
No, no bears. I hope not. I don't know.
Aardvark?
No, but no aardvarks. What are the ones from Texas?
Anteaters?
No, not anteaters. The one,
armadillo. Armadillos?
Yeah, you might see some armadillos down there.
I think I saw one.
All right, there you go.
It was putting on 18.
Drive around the SEC time. Eric Musselman is leaving Arkansas to become the head coach at Southern California. 5 years with the Hogs. Had 110 wins. Went to the Elite Eight and a couple of Sweet 16s, but a losing record this year, 16-17 overall. And just 6-12 in conference play. A lot of folks look at the "what have you done for me lately," and I get that. I think this is a fabulous hire for Southern California.
A home run for Southern Cal. And I'll say this. Do we know the dough yet? Because I was at the golf course. Do we know the money on this thing?
Well, I do know this. He was making
$4.
He was making
Arkansas.
$4.25 at Arkansas, and some things are going to change because now Lamont Paris is up in that ballpark too. Mm-hmm. So let's just say I think he was 12th during the season. My hunch is that he and his agent have said, we're going to stay in that realm. So I can't possibly imagine that he will be anything other than at least a top 15 salaried coach when he leaves. Otherwise, why? You're not leaving for less.
I'm feeling like top 10. I feel like he gets bumped up. I'll say this, too. Could this have happened? Could he have gone back to Arkansas and said, I've got an offer from Southern Cal. It's this much money. You guys have a counter. I don't know.
Could he have? Yes. Did he? I don't think so, Terry.
I
think when this because this started to get whispered about last week.
Let me throw you this too. You speak of what have you done for me lately, which I totally agree with you. This guy's one of the best coaches in America.
Uh-huh.
And this year was he dropped one, so to speak, this year with this team.
It just didn't gel.
It didn't gel. Again, he is a guy that has been very successful gelling the transfer portal with freshmen and everything else. This year just didn't work.
Right.
how much heat did he get in Fayetteville over this season, and people forgetting that, he's been to 2 Elite Eights and a Sweet 16 in the last 5 years, and how much of that also comes into play of, they just offered me a lot of money to go somewhere else, and they'll appreciate the Elite Eight and the Sweet 16 a lot more than they will here in Fayetteville, obviously. I don't know.
I don't think the AD, Hunter Yurachek, wanted to lose him, but did the fans get disenchanted quickly? Maybe some of them did, and there's some big money boosters out there, and they see themselves as sort of that. Look, they love their baseball too, but I'm going to go with the big two, and they see themselves as kind of 50-50. They really do think, and they have a right to think of themselves as a very, very good basketball school.
Well, they used to be. They've been to Final Fours.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, when
won
Nolan was
national
doing his thing,
championships.
but as you said though, even recently here, Eric's taken him to 2 Elite Eights and a Sweet 16. He's good. I think if he wanted to keep his job, he would keep his job. He wants to go to L.A.
Well, the other thing too, remember he came from Nevada,
right?
So maybe he's a West Coast. Maybe
he is, and he's coached in California. I mean, he's coached the Kings and the Dubs.
And you know what? A quite fertile recruiting area.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, L.A. man, you draw a 50-mile circle.
Yeah, I just wanted to go into the juicy
Speaking
soap
of traffic,
stuff.
you just have to be able to get through it.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think this is a terrific hire for them.
Yes.
And
but can I tell you, better than Enfield. I like Enfield. Musselman's a better coach than Enfield.
Yeah, and Enfield went to a couple of Sweet 16s.
He got to an Elite Eight.
Yeah, and got to an 8. And Elijah and I was kind of marveling is probably too strong, but I thought that Enfield had maybe been there like 6 or 7 years. 11.
Yeah.
11 seasons.
He left took
Gulf
off from
Coast.
Florida Gulf Coast right when Lob City and Dunk City.
Yeah.
Right after that, he's a guy that took advantage of a Sweet 16 trip and cashed in. And look, SMU obviously they're paying to be in the ACC.
Right.
I think they have a little bit of money.
They have a lot of money, and there's another guy who's not leaving. I mean, because he's making, I think Enfield was making close to 4, and he's not leaving for less.
No.
Because he even talked about we had a great life here, and we lived on the beach.
Yeah. I mean, Dallas is cool. The Metroplex is, that's smoking.
What's the area? Is it Highland Park? Is that the super fancy area of
yes,
Dallas?
Jay.
Yeah.
Yes, Jay. Highland Park.
I'm not even sure that his money will allow him to live in Highland
Maybe
Park.
not,
now.
man. That's Jerry Jones' money.
Right.
So, I mean, Enfield obviously got a bump to go to SMU because they want to get for real about everything now they're going to the ACC. And Southern Cal, they're probably paying Musselman. I guess he probably got 4.5 to go to Southern Cal to leave Fayetteville.
I would think it's up to at least 4.5 with
Maybe
incentives
more.
and escalators. Yeah, because again, he was during the season. I know for sure because I saw that he was the 12th highest paid coach during this past season.
Okay, does Arkansas go Beard?
I think Will Wade.
I'd rather have Beard than Will Wade if you don't mind the baggage. The baggage is bad.
They both have baggage. Beard's personal baggage may be a little harder to stomach. But he's also coached for a national championship. Will Wade, the personal baggage is really more professional.
Yes. And something that now you can do above the table with NIL.
Yeah. I don't know there. I would think it's going to be harder to get Chris Beard out of Oxford than it is to get Will Wade out of McNeese.
I don't disagree. I think that for me personally, if I was an AD, I couldn't hire Chris Beard as much as I think he's a fantastic coach. That's too much for me to stomach.
Yeah.
So it might be
And
Wade.
I think, too, the Ole Miss, again, I don't know what his buyout terms are like. Like, for one thing, I know about Musselman. Musselman's buyout is only $1 million.
Yeah, it fell a lot. It fell a lot here in the last couple
And
of years.
I know only, I say, but I guess I reminded people about Nate Oates when people were talking about Nate Oates to Louisville or would Kentucky get rid of Cal. It was $10 million, and I think his new deal now, I think his first year, Terry, I think it went up to like 18.
Yeah, it's.
But he wanted that.
No, well, that's what he wanted.
He's like, I'm not going anywhere, so let's put a big buyout in. That's what Steve Spurrier did here. I remember when he re-upped his deal, he was like, I want a big buyout. On purpose. I'm not. I want everybody to know I'm not going anywhere.
And let's face it, too, with Alabama, you're probably sitting there going, "Look, dude, we're tired of doing this dance every year.
Yeah,
we're gonna get you what you want in return. We got to stop doing this."
Yeah, and so they put a big buyout for the first couple of years of Oates, but Musselman's was only $1 million.
Yeah, which is
that's nothing.
I mean, Southern Cal boosters got that in their change jar.
And remember, Southern Cal, unlike Oregon and Washington, Southern Cal and UCLA will join and immediately get the full share.
Yes.
That was part of the deal to get them.
And maybe that's why, too, Southern Cal is open to paying. And look, Musselman, like I say, he's one of the 7 best coaches in America, if not one of the best 5. Musselman's really good.
He's great. I think
he got Nevada to the Sweet 16, man, if I remember.
He won better than 25 games a year. I think like 26, 27 games a year at Nevada.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And again, he
and
won
the
110
Martin
games
twins are
in
in the
5
NBA.
years. He was averaging 22 a year at Arkansas, and this year they only won 16.
Yeah.
So do that math.
Yeah, he's good, man.
He's very good.
He's really
I think it's
good.
a really good hire. And real quick, speaking of Ole Miss, to conclude the drive around the SEC, Lane Kiffin has hired former New York Giant head coach Joe Judge. He is going to join the staff as a special teams analyst. He will not be an on-field coach, but Joe Judge kind of taking the Lane Kiffin rehabilitation route. Now it's Lane that's rehabbing guys.
Just don't let him get near your offense. Keep Joe Judge away from your offense.
Special teams, man.
There you go.
Special teams. But Lane sees that as a real key. Lane Kiffin's, he's building a little something. He's building a little something. That's the drive around the SEC, brought to you by Herndon Chevy, your hometown Chevy dealer. Stop by the showroom. See why Herndon makes you smile. We'll go over today's poll question about the Super League of College Football as the postgame show continues. All right, welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show on this Thursday afternoon. Jay Phillips, Terry Ford with you here for a few minutes. Thanks to Tyler for hanging around. Elijah is probably about to land as we speak in Cleveland, Ohio, and he'll be giving reports throughout the day, even with Gunner.
Really?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't.
Well, honestly,
Elijah's far nicer than me when it comes to dealing with Bill Gunner.
well, here's what it is. Contractually, he has to do them with Gunner.
Yeah.
Because of the setup we have with it.
Sure.
No, you were probably asleep.
Well, it depends on
I
the
finally
time.
did my first radio segment with Gunner
What
last
time?
week.
What time?
It was in the morning. Now, you might have been awake.
Well, I know it was in the morning.
It was in the morning.
Thanks.
That's all I got for you.
No, I was
awake.
awake. In the morning.
Because he came to me, he's like, and of course, obviously, Bill was, he goes, hey, you want to hop onto a segment? We can talk about, this or that or that or this. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, I've avoided this for almost 3 years. I've avoided this for almost 3 years. And then you know what? Because I try to be nice. Sure, Bill.
Sure.
Let's do it.
Sure.
So I ducked and dodged it for almost 3 years.
Yeah. Thankfully, I don't do those, but as you know, Bill and I do a television show together now. And that,
Well, I'll be honest with you.
That's a grind.
I have a personal thing about doing segments with anyone under 5 feet tall. I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Because he's not under 5 feet tall.
No, he's not under 5 feet tall. He's about 5'4".
5'1.5". He.
See, I wouldn't be doing this to him, but he has been taking shots at me lately. And I've been letting him go.
Oh, he takes them at me. I take him at him. But
I've been letting him go.
But we do.
But today,
I've had a lot of fun doing we do our Gamecocks Plus show, the cocktail hour every week. It's fun. And he's actually.
Does he actually have a cocktail? Because I'm sure Bill
No.
will have that.
We thought about that, but then we thought better of it.
Well, see, he's done. He can have a cocktail. You have to come into a show.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
I
not
don't
telling
know.
you.
Jay Phillips Loaded might be a fun show for your last day.
Is my last day coming up? You know something I don't?
No, I mean, after you finish that uploaded, the things you say, it'll make it your last day.
Oh, I get you. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Follow me, Jay. Follow
Okay,
me.
sorry.
Come on, follow me.
I was like, wait a minute. Because, yeah, if I know it's going to be my last day, I may.
Oh, I would on my last.
Yeah, why
Don't
not?
trust me.
Why not? Poll results so far. We are asking you about your thoughts on the proposed Super League of college football, which, again, very much in the infancy stage. I wouldn't sweat this too much. Would you be in favor of its main tenets, which include promotion and relegation, salaried players, and collective bargaining? A, yes, it's time to change. B, no, it's too professional. Or C, I'm not sure yet. Right now, 52.2% of you. Let me get a refresh here. Hang on one second. Nope. 51.8, so it's gone down a little bit. 51.8% of you say no, it's too professional. 32.7, yes, it's time to change. 15.6 say they aren't sure yet. Michael hits us with another reply on Twitter. Seems like a nightmare having to make a union. TV contracts will decide what happens. The TV contracts may be deciding what happens in terms of this not going forward, unless you could get all parties involved, meaning the conferences and their respective television partners, to break their contracts. And considering what we are seeing with today's other big news out of Charlotte, that a judge in Mecklenburg County sided with the ACC and will not toss the ACC's case against Florida State, and that it will be able to go forward, and the ACC can hold Florida State to what they agreed to in terms of exit fees and the grant of rights. I don't think that's going to happen, Terry.
If you sign an agreement not once but twice,
I think that's what the judge is saying. I haven't seen what the judge has said yet. I haven't had time to research that during the show. I'm looking forward to reading more about that tonight and tomorrow. But I still think that's the basic principle here. Is there was no gun at your head, and you have lawyers that read it. Therefore, did the landscape change around you? It's just sort of like when you. Maybe this isn't the great analogy. I don't know. But this is like maybe when you buy a house, like some of those folks out in California that bought a house on the coast and then they had a landslide. Mm-hmm. And it's like you didn't have insurance because they wouldn't insure you, but you knew there was a chance of this. But you moved there anyway and spent all that money. And we'd love to help you. but you built your house where there's landslides on the coast, and the cliffs sometimes falls away. Florida State, like you knew other conferences had deals that ran out well before yours, and so did the whole ACC. But you signed it.
You wanted this for stability.
You signed
wanted
it.
this so nobody could leave, and now guess what you want to do?
Yeah, you want it. You can't go back. You can't have your cake and eat it too, as they like to say.
Right.
I know you and Tyler do. What is your segment? The greatest day.
Greatest day in the history of the world.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that. I don't do these every day, but I'd like to more often. On this date, 1974.
Yeah.
Hank Aaron tied Babe Ruth's record in Philadelphia or in Cincinnati.
Wasn't that off of Jack Billingham?
Jack Billingham. Well done, sir. That was number 714. And remember, Bowie Kuhn like almost forced Hank to play. The Braves wanted to sit him so he could hit 715 in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And Bowie Kuhn was like, "No, you have to play him." It's like, the heck we do. Also on this date, truly one of the great days in the history of college basketball. NC State 54, Houston 52, Lorenzo Charles, Derek Whittenberg, and Jim Valvano chasing air to hug somebody, man.
Yep.
I will never forget that game.
That was a phenomenal game.
Awesome.
Unless you were a Houston Cougar fan.
Oh, and how that team never won a title. I do not know.
Hall of Famers on that squad, dude.
Yeah. Good stuff today. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Tyler, Elijah. Do it all again tomorrow. See y'all. Oh, we're in that time of year around Columbia, South Carolina, and the Midlands. Hot, cold, hot, cold. Your HVAC system is running overtime. Make sure it's ready to go once it's nothing but hot. Call our good friends at AAA Heating and Air, 803-677-1500. Get your system inspected. If you don't know when you've last had it inspected, it's a great time to do it. And if you'd like a brand new system, then Roy and Dana Finley ready to help you out with guaranteed financing options and 12 months, no payments or interest. You heard me right. Plus the 15-year parts and labor guarantee. You can even get an instant quote online. Just visit call888today.com. That's call888today.com. Just tell them a few quick things. You get an estimate. You know what it's all about. You go from there. Plus electrical services and so much more. I love what they've done at my house. You will too. Stay comfortable all year long with our good friends at AAA Heating and Air, and tell them we sent you.